How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the final 2 hours of Wrestling Observer Live, and I'm sure many of you have heard this. We've been getting a lot of, and I want to thank everyone who's been sending out emails to us, to Brian, myself, and to Al. We really appreciate it. This, of course, is the final show as eYada is closing down today, and we really don't have a lot more. There's really not a lot more that we can say about it other than I want to thank all the listeners over the last 22 months. This has been definitely the most fun job that I've ever had. It's been a pleasure working with Brian from almost the first week and Al from the first day. And it's just been a load of fun. I learned a lot about wrestling from the guests, from the callers. And I tell you, it's 2 o'clock Pacific time when we start the show. And like 1:45 every day I get that itch. And it's believe me, I'm going to miss it a lot. I know Brian is and I know Al is. And for those of you who are going to, I thank you very much for everyone who's kept the show alive and made this so much fun. Brian, you have anything to add?
I don't really know what else there is to add. I just want to, obviously I want to thank you, Dave, for calling me the first week and saying, you want to come on every now and then.
I need help. Help me.
And I want to especially thank Al because I know those first few weeks when Al got the phone call saying, hey, this is Brian, it was like, oh, great, here we go. But I want to thank him for putting up with me and Dave and all the listeners. I actually do love all the listeners, even those of you that called and asked when Shawn Michaels was coming back repeatedly. I really do, so.
No, Brian, that's not true when you were calling every day. I wasn't doing that. Come on.
Well, I was thinking that. What the hell am I doing calling again?
But I do have to say it's been a great run for almost 2 years, and I've had a great time working with you guys and with Eddie Goldman as well. It's a shame Eddie couldn't do a final show today either. He's actually close to Canada right now, if I'm not mistaken. He was going up to Montreal.
What do you think? Does he think the Vietnam War's still on or something?
No, and he called me from a payphone at a rest stop in Albany to find out what was going on, and basically I just told him, what had happened, and he said, he just said, well, am I going to be able to pick up my stuff on Friday? And I said, well, yeah, the office will be open the rest of the week, but we're not broadcasting as of today. And by the way,
have
guys,
a cheeseburger for me.
That's what I told him. I said, make sure when you go out tonight for those lap dances, give him $10 Canadian. It's okay, it's worthless anyway. So, but I just want to say, guys, this is the last show that will be heard on eYada. Dan and Scott did not do their broadcast today. Rush and Malloy just finished at about a few minutes before 5. So. This is it. This will be the final show that'll take eYada.com out.
Wow.
I need to go out with a bang, then.
Yeah. I want to also thank Bob Meyerowitz because, I had never done anything like this. And when he wanted to start the station, quite frankly, I had to be talked into doing this because I was so busy doing the Wrestling Observer newsletter that the idea of adding something that was going to take this many hours was like, I thought there's like no way. And I'm go ahead.
Sorry, Dave, I don't mean to interrupt. We've got Mark Madden on the line.
Okay, well, then he'll break. But I just want to say that I want to thank Bob for the opportunity. And, Mark, what's going on?
Dave, you know what? Pretty soon, everybody who knows anything about wrestling will be out of business.
I know.
No, I'm sorry about the eYada thing. I just wanted to call in. I was going to be a guest next week, but now there's not going to be a next week, so I figured I'd pop in for a couple minutes in between segments of my mildly popular radio show. I don't know. The scene in wrestling right now, what's there to talk about? I mean, the WWF owns the business on a nationwide level, and they have their interpromotional angle, and quite frankly, I think they're not doing a very good job with it. It should be us versus them, like NWO, WCW, and IWGP New Japan were. That was the key to the success. Both of those promotions spent months setting up us versus them, and the WWF has inexplicably gone right to the Wolfpack versus Hollywood NWO phase.
Yeah, without
you
the
may
money.
see some changes tonight.
Well, you will see some changes tonight. In fact, that's one thing that I do want to let everyone know that the WWF is very aware of the fact that what they were doing was not working and that they were a couple of weeks away from a WCW Raw show that very likely going on the direction they were going was going to be a bomb that they cannot afford. And everything changes tonight, and they're going to be I really wish there was a show tomorrow so we could discuss these changes, whether they're good or bad. And obviously, I don't think they could be any worse than what was happening.
Well, Dave, I know you don't want to give away spoilers, but is it going to turn into us versus them tonight?
I think that it might be us versus them versus some other guys.
If they're not going to go to ECW.
there is a possibility of that, too. There's a lot of ideas that have been batted around, and there's going to be some new people debuting tonight. And the pay-per-view lineup for Cleveland is totally up in the air. Everything is, in fact, let me talk about everything that's going on in the WWF that we've been talking about for the last couple of, weeks and months as far as the direction and where they're going. Everything now is up in the air, other than the fact that they probably will be doing, or almost for sure doing SmackDown Live. Almost everything else is going to be reevaluated after TV tonight and tomorrow. Then they're going to take stock and go, okay, this is where we are, this is what we want to do, and they're going to come up with an entirely new direction. So, every week when Raw starts, we go, this is going to be a big week. But this is like the equivalent of that first week where Russo and Bischoff came in and everybody lost. It won't be so bad. Like, they're not going to strip every one of their belts, hopefully, because that. But there's going to be some major new angles tonight, and since I don't know exactly what the angle is going to be, it's hard to really comment on it other than it'll
be new.
It'll be new, and I was told that it will be what we have been suggesting, a lot of it. So I don't know what that means, but
well,
we'll find out.
You'll get credit for it.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because if they go to WCW versus WWF versus ECW, then they might as well just hold up a disclaimer at the beginning of the show saying we're booking for the internet. Period. And pretty soon their program will be lucky to be on the internet. I mean, you can't involve and I don't mean this in a denigrating fashion, but ECW at its peak didn't approach WCW at its low point ratings-wise. And the casual fan, and God must have loved casual fans because he made so many of them, will never have even heard of ECW. So while all you yahoos out there doing the ECW circle jerk a year after the promotion's dead might love ECW being in the mix, it won't make sense and it won't draw money.
Well, I mean, the whole key is...
Well, their job is they need to make it make sense. They need to make something out of ECW.
That's right.
I think it could probably be done.
Why do that?
If they're just going to rely on the past, it's not going to work. They need to make a new,
Why bother with that when the WCW name still means quite a bit? Why bother?
They probably listen to the ECW chants
they listen
and are
to
fooled. Seriously.
They listen to the ECW chants. There's such a negative reaction to WCW, and the problem is WCW was introduced, in a very bad way. Clearly, it didn't work, and now they're just regrouping and they're trying to figure out a way. You got to give them credit for one thing. They could have just said, like, we've got our direction, this is our direction, and we're going to keep going, and then show up with that WCW Raw show, and there would have been so much negativity towards that, it just wasn't going to work. So now they're going to try something new. I give them credit,
and let me make one more last statement because I got to get back on my show. But the ECW fans from back when, the hardcore people that chant ECW at every show they go to, be it a bingo hall in North Carolina instead of Philadelphia, or a WWF show or an indie show or whatever, they're still watching anyway. There's no need to hook them. ECW returning wouldn't do anybody a bit of good. They've got to go for the casual fan. They've got to go to add more fans, and adding ECW to the mix won't do that. But let me just say, too, if ECW does get into the mix tonight, I would bet my bottom dollar that Paul Heyman had this plan all along.
You need to be in Vegas right now.
Mark, you just know too much.
Right, exactly. I got to go, guys. Hey, hang in there. Sorry to hear about the show, but I'm sure, Dave, I know you're a millionaire many times over anyway.
Yeah, right.
And Alvarez, I know, well, I think you're broke, actually. But good luck. Enjoy the last show. I'll be in touch. Thanks.
Oh, God. Wow, okay. Jeff Merrick. What's going on, Jeff?
Hey, Dave. How you guys doing today?
Hey.
We're doing pretty good.
I've got to tell you how disappointed I was when I got your email this morning, saying the whole thing's kind of over. I was thinking to myself, for the last 22 months, this show's kept me drug-free. What's in its place now?
They just kept a lot of our fans drug-free.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say thanks. I got some awesome letters today, and I tell you the other thing is I think that the one thing that's real sad about it is in the last couple of months, I mean, I always enjoyed the show from probably about the second week on, because the first week I was just, scared to death. But from the second week on, I really liked it. But I'd say in the last 3 months, I mean, I have just loved it. It has been so much fun, looking forward to it. Every show, every guest, with maybe one exception every 3 weeks or so. You know what I mean?
Even that was a fun show.
Who
do you think I'm referring to? I'm not referring to Missy Hyatt. I enjoyed that one.
The thing about the show too is it really put a voice to the newsletters that you guys do. I mean, we've always known about Dave Meltzer this and Dave Meltzer that, and we know the industry leader and that's setting the standard. Now the show finally put a voice to that print, which was certainly something that not only helped you, but I think helped wrestling fans everywhere. Alvarez was revealed as probably the funniest man in the history of the business, and Al Gattuso, I'll tell you something. It's one thing, 'cause I've done radio for a long time. The one thing, it's one thing to have two guys on the air that sound really good, but you really need a strong foundation where you're building on quicksand. Al Gattuso, let me tell you a really quick story here, because I know you guys got a ton of things to talk about. I've been on your show about 4 or 5 different times now.
Yeah.
I remember once I talked to Al on a Friday. He said, call me next week, and we'll pick a time. We'll get you on the show again. And I called him on the Tuesday. He wasn't at the office. He said he was at home. I called home. I talked to who I think was his wife, and she said, you know what, Al's really sick. He's been in bed. He's not taking any phone calls.
Yes, it was my wife. Come on now.
It was your wife.
And
okay.
I was deathly ill that day. That was actually the trip, Dave, that you and I had taken to. Where were we at? Louisville Gardens. I'd gotten sick right after that trip.
Oh, the Louisville Gardens. That was a fun trip.
Yes, it was. My throat had closed up. I don't know what had happened, but I was out of it for like 4 days, and I'm never sick that long.
Al sounded, his wife put it over like, he was on his deathbed. I'm like, oh, geez, I hope Al's doing all right. About 45 minutes later, Al Gattuso calls to book me on the show, sounding like he's taking his last breaths as he's penciling me in for Observer Live. And I'm thinking, you know what, I'm not like Ric Flair, or, he's not booking like Vince McMahon. It's like, if he's going to be that dedicated to take his last breath, to book some guy who does, a radio show up in Toronto, Canada, it's like, you know what, you've got like the perfect team together. Because I know how hard you and Brian work on your newsletters, and that just cemented to me, like, you know what, you've got like the hardest working team out there.
Jeff, you couldn't have done a better job at kissing my ass. You're hired. That's it. You're my publicist.
But there's boots to be licked.
Okay. As far as Jeff, before we go on, we should probably talk about the current wrestling scene because it is in turmoil. I don't know how much you've heard today, but what are your thoughts going back? This was a big week. This past week with the WCW thing and the crowd reaction in not only on television in Tacoma, but also in North Charleston on Saturday night. Realistically, the idea of WCW Raw, if it were to start in 2 or 3 weeks, the people are not ready for it. It's just too soon.
I heard Madden talking a second ago before I got on the air here about how, you got to establish the WCW brand because you got to go after the casual fans, and the ECW thing isn't going to do anything. The problem we saw in the last couple of weeks with WCW, and not just in the ring but behind the scenes as well, is that the further they go along with this WCW angle, they're actually taking steps backwards right now. The bleeding is so extreme right now that they need a Band-Aid. And you know what? Even if ECW doesn't put any more butts in the seats or isn't the big, huge cash cow that Paul Heyman maybe wants it to be, at least it's a Band-Aid right now, because the more they put WCW on television, the more this thing is going to go backwards.
Well, the one thing
I think one of the things is that ECW or WCW or any 3 letters can be successful if it's promoted the right way. Man's talking about, okay, there's not really an ECW fan base, and their rating at its high point, didn't match WCW at its low point. But the whole thing was, when NWO began, there was nothing before it. It didn't have anything. It was created, and it became a success. And I don't care if ECW did a .1 for every show that it ever did. If Vince starts an angle with a group called ECW and makes some badasses, it'll work.
But you know what? At the same time, ECW never had Vince McMahon pouring its fans anti-ECW Kool-Aid for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, the other thing on this also is that it doesn't matter like the size of the ECW audience at its end or at its beginning, because the point is that interpromotional done correctly always works. Now this one wasn't working because it wasn't done correctly. So if they do ECW and they do it all wrong, it probably won't help. But if they do this stuff right, and even WCW, they got off to a terrible start last week. And we can all look back and go, Buff Bagwell was a big mistake, and believe me, they know it. It's like that's not exactly a secret that they're not aware of them. They're more aware of Buff Bagwell than, quite frankly, we are. And perhaps, hey, they should have had Bill Goldberg, they should have had Ric Flair, all the stuff that we talked about. It would have been good. They should have They should have known exactly where they were going when they debuted it. They didn't, and now they're starting from scratch. But to me, WCW is not dead if it's done correctly from this point forward. And again, we'll find out what that means. They're in Atlanta.
But that's going to involve a lot of guys really swallowing a lot of pride and swallowing hard. Because Austin's got to get laid out. Taker's got to
be
get
done
laid
now.
out one-on-one.
That's one of the problems they had going in is that, at the very beginning they needed to kill some people, and they really didn't do it. They wouldn't pull the trigger on the angles. And really, Shane McMahon was a bad choice. They should have had a Ric Flair, even better than Eric Bischoff, but there's reasons, obviously, for not having that. I mean, the one thing I will say, if they do the ECW thing tonight, okay, and Paul Heyman is made the leader, the one thing with Paul Heyman is that, this promo that we keep talking about in our minds that needs to be done, he knows that promo better than anyone because he's probably been thinking of it in his mind for the last 3 months, and he'll deliver that promo. Unlike DDP who didn't, and, everybody else who didn't get the chance to.
How much, and I don't want to get, too speculative, but, how much do you think, if they go through the ECW angle right now, Paul does have a hand in the creative, how much did Paul sort of maybe not control things, but sort of control things by not having a hands-on approach with the angles, if you know what I mean?
That's something that we can all speculate on, and we have, and we will again.
Because, at the end of the day,
but I don't know.
If
He's a smart man.
If Paul Heyman's part of the creative team, and they're going over the script last Monday night, and they see their main event is Booker T and Buff Bagwell, Paul Heyman knows going into extending that match. Nobody knows Raw is a disaster, and
nobody knew it was going to be that bad because the agent's report from Spokane was not that negative on the match, and I don't think that anyone really. I think they knew there was going to be some negativity, but they didn't have any idea of the level. Nobody really did.
Yeah. I think they must have known that.
I think that there'd be some negativity towards it, but
not the level that they got.
The thing is,
WCW in some of those angles, they really did come off as a babyface, and the crowd did cheer a lot of the things that they did. And, I don't think that there was ever a reaction like the one they got in Tacoma prior to this, where they could have looked and went, if we put these two guys in the ring, we're going to get this reaction. There was nothing to compare it to.
I don't think you can. I hate to keep harping on Buff Bagwell here, but what is?
Everybody's been doing
it.
it.
How do you not know what you're getting with Buff Bagwell?
You're right as far as his behavior for that whole week. But the whole thing that they were looking for is they were of the impression that Buff Bagwell was a decent worker, that Booker T is a good worker, that they've worked together on and off for about 8 years because they've both been around forever. They're used to each other, and that Buff has some charisma and some name recognition, and now as far as Buff not losing the match, and I'll tell you what, I look back on that though, there were a lot of flaws in that soup, or whatever flies in that soup. There were a lot of flaws in that thing. What can I say?
It was at every single level, too. I think they knew when they bought this thing that WCW was in trouble and there were tons of problems, and I don't think they really knew how deep they were until they took it on the road. And then it was really exposed. Until they put WCW in a bigger ring and took it on the road, I don't really think they had an idea of the sort of the depth of how bad this thing actually was.
You're right.
And when they got all those guys together backstage.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. The other thing is you got to remember, when these negotiations were going on, this business was a different business. Vince McMahon was a couple of weeks away from the biggest WrestleMania in history. Vince McMahon, was the greatest wrestling promoter of all time. He could do no wrong except in football. And then what happened is, a new reality set in, and all of a sudden, WWF started getting. With no WCW around, wrestling kind of got boring. Ratings went down. People's confidence in Vince started shaking a little bit, as it's bound to do. And then this came in, and hey, let's face it, they weren't ready for what it was. They had the time to be ready, but they weren't. And it's, they didn't learn the lesson from the XFL, which we talked about for months when they hadn't started it. But that's the reality. They didn't learn that lesson.
Yeah, they dipped the toe in the pool before they dove in. And realistically, to make it work, and you guys have talked about this for a long time. You have to dive in, head first. You can't just sort of dip your toe in the pool and test the water, especially now with something as serious as this. This is going to be your business for the entire year. You can't just sort of, stick the thermometer
for the entire future.
I'm sorry?
The entire future. The idea. I mean, they may still be splitting crews. We may still have a different crew on Monday and Thursday. I mean, all of this is certainly things that are not dead or alive yet. You know, I mean, everything's, subject to review now. But, I mean, the idea, let's say there's one thing. The idea of a different crew, forget about the WCW name, because in hindsight, the WCW name was going to be a negative. I mean, you talked about living in Toronto, you know it better than anyone, because they were going to do a Raw in Toronto and call it WCW Raw. And quite frankly, everybody there was going to be a WF contracted guy. It was going to be the WF production team. And it was going to be half WWF stars, if not more than half, on the WCW side. But people, you told me people were freaking.
That brand, I'll tell you, they did ticket sales 2 weeks ago. It was still going to be WWF Raw. Actually, I think that day we found out that TNA had confirmed there was going to be a WCW show. And people in line, of course, weren't listening to the radio show at that point. And the phone calls and the emails we got the next day for the September 3rd ACC show, people bought it thinking, you know what, it's just going to be a WWF show and it's going to have Angle and Rocky and Austin's going to be there.
It's still going to have some of those guys.
You know what? It still will, but as soon as they heard the WCW brand was in front of that, doesn't matter who you put on the show. That brand is just so dead, especially here in Canada, that,
You know what?
It doesn't matter.
Just like we've been talking about as far as, when I was there at the show, the fans didn't even care who was in the ring, but as soon as they saw that WCW logo shined onto the mat, they just went insane. Hated it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a way to make that work in your advantage. You just have to turn them into a WCW, whatever group it is, turn them into a heel group to feud with WWF, and there is money in that because people do hate it so much. I mean, the thing is, but you can't do a separate WCW TV show, just like when
if they're heels.
many times, during the heyday of WCW a few years ago. I mean, I remember, we're going to make Thunder the NWO show, or we're going to give the NWO 2 hours. And they would do that remember that they tried that out, and it was the worst television in the world. The NWO pay-per-view, what a disaster. People didn't buy it. Yeah. It's like the NWO name, which was over as a babyface to a lot of people, was still, as an entity unto itself, had they gone forward, would have been an incredible flop. And this name, WCW, has a more negative stigma than that NWO name. I mean, it can be very effective as a part of WWF, but I think that the idea of Raw's War, I think that the idea of calling it WCW Raw's War, people clearly are not ready for it anytime soon, and I'm sure they won't do it for that very reason. They're not going to make that mistake.
And you see what happens when WWF guys take on WCW guys. The crowd pops huge for it, even when it's like WWF team underneath out there, right? Even as long as they're beating up Jindrak and O'Hare and Palumbo and any of those guys, as long as it's Bradshaw who's beating them down, or Haku or whoever, as long as it's WWF versus WCW, the fans are fine. But when it's Helms versus Kidman, forget about it. When it's Page and Booker, forget about it. There's just no way. Even that tag match from Heat, with Stasiak and Canyon against O'Hare and Palumbo. Crowd is dead.
Yeah. Well, so you learn from that, and you book interpromotional, and you don't book WCW versus WCW because it's not what people want to see yet. 18 months from now, a year from now, 6 months from now, they may be ready for it, but live and learn.
If they do an ECW thing, I mean, does this just make it more confusing, though? If you think it's tricky to book one invasion, try booking two at the same time.
Yeah, but I've seen, Japan.
I think it's possible.
I've seen Japan.
Or they might just do something where ECW and WCW team up as, like, one group.
They could do that. But, I mean, like in Japan, just an example, in the New Japan heyday, in the 80s heyday, I mean, when they first did that, Riki Choshu feuded with Inoki and Fujinami, which was, one of their big boom periods, they also had the third foreign group. You had the foreign group, you had the New Japan Sekigun, and you had the Ishin-gun, which was, the new group. And they did a three-way feud that did, monster business for several years. It can be done.
Look at all the factions they have right now with New Japan.
Yeah.
But you're talking about a Japanese audience versus a North American audience. I mean, fans are confused by WCW invasion right now.
Yeah, I think that people can keep that much straight. If it's done wrong, it's not going to work. But I mean, if you have good promos and you explain in your promos what this whole storyline is and why everyone, it's just pro wrestling. All you got to do is tell people why this group of people or these guys hate these guys, have a reason that people can relate to and go, I hate my boss, or I hate that, guy who ran that business that ran my friend's business out of business. You know what I mean? There's ways to do this that people can relate to, and it will work if they do the interviews and do it. If they just throw in and have some random guys attacking, and then all the ECW guys come in with their big thing and get beat up, or all the WCW guys get beat up right away, and then they fight each other for no reason. Yeah, the second week, yeah, of course, that ain't going to work.
You know what I still think would work, guys, as keeping WCW separate? keeping it to its own entity and not mingle with WWF, is just run smaller towns and smaller buildings and build it up from there. The same way Paul built ECW. I mean, going into like New York and going into Miami or going into Atlanta tonight. These with the same problem we saw with the XFL, where you take what is perceived as a major league city and run a minor league product in it, and that's how fans are seeing WCW right now. They're seeing it as an inferior product, the same way that New York saw the Hitmen as an inferior product, the same way that all the XFL major league cities saw the inferior.
Except San Francisco. But that was different. That was because of the park. But no, you're right. I mean, I think that right now they should. I mean, what they do what they do tonight, evaluate it from there. But as far as when they start doing more things, or if they're splitting house show crews in half, I think that it's very important for the foreseeable future to just have, two WWFs as opposed to, that what you used to call WCW, or maybe, I don't know, maybe even come up with a name, like instead of WCW, call it, I don't know, like you can't call it WF Light, but, but you maybe come up with a new
They're just
name.
so stuck right now because they've already started this angle, and Shane has purchased WCW.
And they're
I guess there's a way
out.
to do it. I'm sure they could think of something, but I don't know. They've gone so far now. It's almost like they should make an attempt to salvage it and do what they can with this group before they just totally give up and change the name.
Okay, but as far as the salvage, the only salvage for now is to make WCW full-fledged heels for the present time and eventually start giving them babyface characteristics once people accept them. And then you can, maybe down the road do something then. But
nope, that's where we have to go then.
Yeah, but that's like a year from now, as far as I think. You're not going to be able to do that one in 3 weeks.
Nope, that's true. Hey, to add a little lightness to today's show, guys, I got an email here from this guy. Do you got a second?
Sure, go ahead.
This is about Stacy Keibler. Did you guys get this email from a WCW.com profile?
No.
This is from a quote from WCW.com's profile on Stacy Keibler. Quote, at 21 years old, Stacy Keibler could choose to spend the summer hanging out with her friends on a sparkling Maryland beach, relaxing before going back to college. Instead, the stunning leggy blonde anticipates resuming her full-time career in sports entertainment of one of the industry's most gorgeous women.
Isn't that an irony?
Isn't that
because
funny?
This weekend, Stacy Keibler had a chance to pursue her career in sports entertainment, or
she went to the beach.
Nice sparkling beach, and she went to the beach. So, whatever.
There is a God.
Yes.
She's going to have a lot of beach time this summer, I think.
Yeah. Jeff, I want to thank you very much for joining us and everything.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Listen, you guys had a tremendous run. Don't have your heads down. You guys should be very proud of everything you did. As far as being, the number one show out there, you guys were clearly it, hands down. And there's always, open door policy for everyone on Observer Live on our show anytime.
Oh, we'd love to do it, and we'll be on that show, and you should get Brian on the show too.
I was going to say, Brian, when are you going to come on our show?
I just have a problem because I'm always wrestling Saturdays.
Oh, okay. You have a cell phone?
Yeah.
There we
I
go.
can probably do that.
We should do this. Okay.
Yeah, we'll figure out we'll figure something out.
Tremendous. Yeah, you guys, really feel proud about what you did over the last 22 months. I've never seen an audio show or any sort of radio property built up this strong, this quickly in the history of my broadcast career. You guys did a tremendous job. You should really give yourself a pat on the back.
Thanks very much, Jeff. I really appreciate it. I do want to mention to everyone that, we will be on with Jeff every Saturday and every Sunday at Live Audio Wrestling. We're going to continue doing that. And, of course, Brian and I will be continuing doing the newsletters every week. In fact, in a sense, it's probably better for the newsletters because it's going to be our only outlet for, that and the website. Brian, real quick, why don't you tell everyone how to get Figure 4? And I want to, again, for those of you who don't get Figure 4, if you enjoy Brian's sense of humor here, I tell you, Figure 4 has all the news for the week and all that, but I love reading Figure 4 because, whether it's the Mexican TV reviews or the TV reviews, nobody does better TV reviews of, Raw and SmackDown and has a funnier insight to the news than Brian. It's, for a couple bucks a week, you're going to laugh. It's like going to a comedy club in your own house and, hide from your wife and your girlfriend because you're going to be cracking up and they're going to go, what's in there? What's in there? What are you reading? Which is sometimes what I get. But anyway,
Well, thank you. Yeah, we always plug the newsletters. You can go to the website, and we have links for how to order Observer and Figure 4. And if you want to order through the mail, the address is Post Office Box 426, and that's in Woodinville, Washington at 98072. And all the ordering information is up on the website, previews and that sort of thing. So check it out.
And the Observer as well. We do that every week. It's the most comprehensive news of pro wrestling anywhere, and it's probably going to get even more comprehensive starting next week. So I guess there's a silver lining to all this. Although, believe me, I wouldn't trade doing this for anything. This was really just so much fun. Al, do we have more calls that we can start getting to?
Yes, we do. We've got Harry, who's been waiting quite a long time.
Okay,
Harry.
Hey guys,
Harry,
how's it
what's
going?
going on?
Hey.
Guess all that prolonged exposure to radon finally did eYada in, huh? Now, does eYada
Yes,
own the
it did.
archives, or?
eYada owns the archives. In fact, I need to talk to Bob because maybe there's some things that we can do with them. I don't know exactly what. I mean, Al, that's something that me and you really need to talk about because a lot of these shows, like the Stevens show, there's a lot of them. We did some really fun shows.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong on this, so if I'm being misquoted, I apologize. I believe the ownership of the archives is now in the hands of the bank that lent us our initial money. I don't know if that's true or not, but after 7 p.m. tonight, the archives will no longer be up on the eYada site, and as to where they're going to go, I don't know. That's that's something, Dave, that you and I would need to discuss probably with Bob Meyerowitz.
Okay.
Cool, because we have a wait going on for the show right now at observerlivechat.com, and we're also bummed out we're not even insulting each other like usual.
Oh, that's not true. I was on there 20 minutes ago. You guys were insulting one another. In fact, one of you guys said, yeah, the reason why my throat closed up is because of that cock that was in my mouth. But I will say that I
That
did
wasn't
not
me,
do that.
dude.
I know.
Wow.
One thing I noticed about the show is you guys made more stars in the last year of WCW just by showing us that people like Tom Zink and Brian Blair were entertaining.
And modest.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Honky Tonk Man, list goes on and on. Max Payne.
Well, we revived Max Payne's career in Honky Tonk Man's, yeah.
No, Tom Zink.
Yeah, we did a better job than WCW ever did with Tom Zink, I will say that. Now, he did it. You know what it was? We gave him a chance to talk, and he was entertaining.
Gave him an outlet.
When he was in WCW, they go, hey, Tom, do those nice white bread babyface promos that bore everybody. Okay, I'm just, so happy to be here, and I love all you fans. And he was so insincere about doing it,
You let him be himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, all the best in the future. Really going to miss the show. Thanks for the memories. And this may be clinging to vines, but we know how long retirements usually last in pro wrestling. So
this is not a retirement. This
What about the loser leaves town match?
Yeah,
I actually made that joke. You guys lost the loser must stop broadcasting match over the weekend.
Yeah. No, we're gonna, we will definitely work on all avenues. We would love to continue doing this. This is not something that, I'm in no mood to give this up if there's an outlet for it. We'll be on it.
Good deal. All right,
Okay.
guys, all the best in the future. Thanks for the memories.
Okay,
Thanks a
thank
lot.
you very much. Okay, Al.
Next up is Peter.
Peter, what's going on?
Hey, Dave, just want to say congratulations on the last 2 years. I'm sorry that the show is going off the air. Just wanted to know what chances are maybe that you might switch to, say, a broadcast.com or some other streaming media company to maybe revive Observer Live.
I have no idea because this all came so suddenly.
With the ratings, I'm sure with the ratings again, I can't understand how you could not be courted by some of these larger media companies.
Maybe we will be. I would really love to do something on radio, and I know that we're gonna be talking about stuff. I don't know how feasible it will be if these things can be put together. That's been stuff that's been talked about for actually the last several months. So maybe we can put something together. I don't know, but if someone like that, if anyone like that, wants to do that, we'll definitely be willing to talk to them. There's no problem about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wouldn't mind having a word with your producer for a second.
Okay.
Al?
Yeah.
Al?
Yeah, not a problem.
He did a good job.
Yeah.
Oh,
sure. Let's just stumble over all our words. Why not?
Oh.
Give me a second, Peter, and I'm going to put you on hold and we'll talk. Okay.
Okay. Who's next, Al?
Next up will be Ryan from Pennsylvania.
Ryan, what's happening?
Hi, guys.
Hey.
First time caller, last show. So
Last time caller.
yes. Hopefully you guys can get something though. So I'm gonna really miss the show. I just wanted to really say that I don't know. Did you guys catch Heat last night?
No.
I saw it live. Just the matches.
What do you think about Canyon? I thought he did pretty well last night.
I don't know if I mentioned this before, but it was one of those matches where 3 men did not fit, and Canyon was not one of them. He actually looked like he knew what he was doing in there. And then you had Sean Stasiak fumbling around, and Paloma O'Hare, who, I don't know, they did okay, but
I just think,
wrong man did the job there.
I think Dave is right when they got to do something with Canyon. He's pretty talented. Same thing with Raven, I think.
You know something that disappoints me among many things of the WWF is they've had the chance to introduce so many new, they've had the chance to introduce so many new people, and the job they used to do introducing people was so good, and they just, maybe because there's just so many, that they just kind of threw them all on television with no introduction. Like a guy like, you can, if a guy comes from another company and he wasn't being used correctly, or whatever his weakness is, let's go in there and go, and Canyon's like the perfect example. So okay, this is what Chris Canyon can do. He's a really, really good worker, and he's got size, which they love. But maybe he's weak at this or this, so let's hide this. Let's do something with it. Let's introduce him as something else. But instead, he's just out there on heat as Canyon, and everyone's going like, it's that WCW guy, and he's got that stigma going right in. Everybody should be a new character, and they've introduced everyone as their same old character with the exception of Shane Helms, and that only difference was a negative difference anyway.
Yeah.
They used to do all those vignettes and everything to introduce a new character where you'd watch a vignette for 5 weeks straight, and then maybe on the 6th week they'd finally debut. And I think that when they started doing the Monday Night Wars, there was such a value on the big surprise that they just didn't bother doing that anymore. They just threw him on TV as the big surprise, and, got a big pop, but then you just had this guy on TV. And even though there's no competition anymore, it's almost like they did the same thing. And, you look at, like, the Dallas Page stalker angle, and everybody was talking about, who's a stalker, who's a stalker? And the reason was they were doing the 5-week vignette again, except they were doing it a different way. It's like, everybody was dying to see who the stalker was, and they finally, they got him. So it's just like, part of it is I agree that they should have done something more with some of these guys, but on the other hand, they did repackage Shane Helms as Gregory Helms. And that, to me, was like, it was a total disaster because everybody I guess we're supposed to remember this guy as a cruiserweight champ.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time forget that his name was not Gregory.
And that one of the few things that WCW was doing at the end was really good ring entrances for some of those guys like Helms and
he
Romeo,
had one.
Who we've never seen. That's the other thing that I'm...
Buff Daddy, but not that Vertebreaker song. That was not that bad.
And the whole entrance.
Yeah.
They can't find 4 girls in every city to dance down to the ring with him.
Yeah, well, and the other thing I'm looking at, this is real. Another real sad thing about WCW is, in that last in the last couple of months of WCW, everyone thinks of it as being so terrible, but most of those pay-per-views were pretty good because the first half would be awesome and the second half would be pretty shitty. And those guys that were in the first half, we're really not seeing them, and we're all going like, God, it's too bad they're not pushing these guys. And then they come in, and I'm thinking of like Kaz Hayashi, who may have been the best worker in that company in the last couple of months of that company, and we not only have never seen him, he may be on a dark match tonight, but we certainly will probably never see him with a push, and it's just, and the guys we're going to see with the push, are going to be the same guys that, killed the company. I don't know, and
killed
again,
the company in the first place.
It's going to be hard because, the bottom line is WWF fans. Because the WCW fans that may have been somewhat conditioned to accepting smaller guys because they were pushed a little bit more for the last couple of years, they don't exist anymore. And the WWF fans, the bottom line is that small guys have never been a part of their package. And although Tajiri will be the exception, the bottom line is those fans really don't want to, it's going to be so much harder. Maybe not impossible, though, because if you keep giving people great matches, sooner or later they figure out, what? We've been seeing some great matches. And
here's the question, though.
Okay.
We always talked about ECW as being a cruiserweight company, but it was never called a cruiserweight company. It just had a bunch of smaller guys.
Yes.
Wouldn't it just be possible to not book these small guys with big guys and just have them wrestle each other, but not even so much call them cruiserweights? You would just never have Kidman in there with Canyon, who's a foot taller than him?
Well, you can dump the thing, but then again, but then with that, it depends on you. We got to figure out who's on what roster, and how they're going to mix and match this stuff up because, a lot of the ECW guys obviously were a lot smaller than people thought they were next to the monsters in the WWF, and that's something that they've got to figure on. But, if you've got, I'll tell you, the whole key to this thing still is if you got great interviews and great vignettes, you can overcome all those other obstacles, I think. And that's one thing.
It's all about promotion, though.
It's all about promotion, and, You know, I mean, it's been the case. It's been the case all year this year, ever since WCW was going down the tubes and ECW went down the tubes. Is that it's in Vince McMahon's hands, and if he does a great job of promotion, this business is going to be in great shape. And if he does a bad job, this business is going down, and it's up to him and his crew right now.
I just wish more than anything that Vince would. I don't even know how he could possibly do this, but not look at the guys in real life. You know what I mean? Because he sees these guys smaller than him, and he makes these assumptions. Whereas, we've talked about it a million times, you watch it on TV, and who really knew how small Rhino was until he was in there with, like, the Big Show? Nobody. I don't see...
Well, when
he's back there, and he
Christian,
sees him, and all of a sudden it's, oh my God, this guy's small, he can't do it, and it's all downhill from there.
Hey, guys. Just to let you know, I don't know if you guys do know, but apparently Buff Bagwell has been released from the WWF.
Wow. That was fast.
Yes, it's from WWF.com. Bagwell parts ways with World Wrestling Federation Entertainment. Senior Vice President for Talent Relations Jim Ross met with Buff Bagwell on Monday, and the two men mutually agreed to end Bagwell's contractual obligations.
Mutually?
Oh, I bet they booked him in a handicap match with the Acolytes.
And I know you guys aren't going to be able to get to the emails, but we've gotten some great emails from some fans who have sent in just to say thanks and what a great job we've done. One of them, though, which I find particularly funny, it says, Dave, contact Missy and see if you can have Wrestling Observer Live on WrestlingVixens.com. They can probably afford it already. And by the way, the guy that you guys were talking about just a little while ago, Mr. Tom Zenk.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, Tom, what's happening?
Not much. How about you?
You're a week and a half late.
Sorry to hear it. I'm sorry to hear about it. I'm not as sorry as I am. Poor Buff Bagwell, what, he couldn't cut it?
He couldn't cut it.
Oh, my God, I heard he got beat up. Is that true?
They kind of were a little rough on him on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But he didn't make many friends in that 1 week he was there.
Isn't that something?
That was quick because, we were doing the over and under like Labor Day, and here we are. We just, he lasted a week.
Yeah, his judgment cometh, and that right soon.
Yes.
I guess he got it. Yeah, well, he kind of had an.
Oh well.
That should be a sign, don't you think, of what's going to go on there?
It is a good sign for everybody else that like if they perceive you as marketable and you have a good body, but you got a bad attitude, you're history.
Sure. They don't take any crap, and that's a signal to all the other guys. Oh, God, you hear what they did? They made an example out of Marcus. But he wasn't ever cut out for it anyway. They saw he blew up on TV. They had to be mad as hell, and they turned everything into their advantage, I'm going to use him to my advantage. Mm-hmm. And that's the way I see that he did that.
Tom.
Yes.
This... How do you look? I mean, have you watched the last couple weeks of television?
Yes, of course. I want to see that stuff with DDP and that. I'm thinking, what's going on here? But they got him hooked up with what's his name, Vince's favorite, The Undertaker, right? And he's all crippled too.
Yeah, and they got him with Shane tonight.
Yeah. So what's going to happen in that match? What do you guys think on that?
Well, everything's changing, so I don't know what to think. On anything because the long-term plans are all out the window. It could be one of a million things.
You think it'd be a swerve, though? I would think...
Well, if they already have the WCW guys fighting each other.
Yeah.
And they say that everything is going to be changed, and if they're actually going to work and supposedly do this great angle or whatever and make WCW a force, then they have to be a unit, in which case, these two guys really couldn't have gotten a fight with each other.
There is no...
They'll have to get in the ring for their match and maybe, have the WWF guys surround the ring or whatever, and then WCW guys come down and they all kill them.
Take a look at it from my viewpoint. The ratings aren't all that hot. They fumble the ball. They don't have any big names from WCW. People are just going to fart at it. And doesn't Vince kind of want to pay back TNN? Aren't they the kind of heels? They're going to stick WCW on TNN and they can get the crappy show. And then
Vince can't afford that right now, though.
Really?
I mean,
he's not going to give a crappy show to anybody.
He can't tank another show because Heat's ratings are really sad right now.
But the big
so they've got Raw and
SmackDown.
They can't tank either show. They need to turn these shows. I mean, the media. I mean, there was something in the media. There have been many stories actually of the fall of SmackDown. So I mean, they need to get that. They need to get these two shows up.
Well, they trashed him here in the paper about SmackDown because guys said it at work, and no one's really talking about wrestling now. But they noticed that his McMahon's ratings have gone really bad in SmackDown or UPN, and that's the Thursday show. So what's Raw going to be on? TNN?
Raw's going to stay on. Raw will stay on TNN, and SmackDown will stay on UPN on Thursdays. I mean, that stuff's going to stay. It's just that the format and how they're going to handle these shows, that's all up in the air right now.
Yeah, but they haven't been so good so far.
There's this. No, they haven't. In the big picture, they haven't been. In the small picture, they put on entertaining television.
Yeah.
But they have not done, angles. The angles have been botched. That's how I would describe it. I mean, there's been good matches. There's been funny stuff with Austin and Angle. I mean, there's high points of the TV, but in the big picture,
high points would mean nothing for business.
No.
Right. But as far as drawing
what
money,
is Austin getting a cowboy hat doing for anything?
I like the cowboy hat. It was entertaining as hell, but it's only because I was one of the boys. That small cowboy had laughed my ass off. But
it was funny, but it didn't sell one show. It didn't sell one buy.
Exactly. It doesn't cross over to the mainstream audience that you want.
Well, it doesn't make it crosses over that they're going ha ha ha, but it's not making them go. I can't wait to see, Steve Austin now wrestle Booker T because he gave Kurt Angle a cowboy hat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One theory that I heard over the weekend from somebody was, with WCW dead, WWF doesn't have them as competition anymore, obviously, and now their competition on Monday and Thursday is like these primetime sitcoms. And so the theory is, we'll put some more sitcom-style humor in our show and try and steal that audience.
No, you can't beat them at their game. Their game is wrestling, and they got to do good wrestling. If people wanted another sitcom, they would. If people would want to watch a sitcom, they want to watch a sitcom. They don't want to watch wrestlers do bad acting or even sometimes good acting. It's a sitcom,
But even if the whole thing is good actors in wrestling, the best actors in wrestling, I think, are still quite a level below the best actors or even the worst actors in sitcoms.
Exactly, because that's why none of the wrestlers have ever made it in Hollywood big time. They always come back to wrestling. Look at Piper, look at Hogan, look at Jesse Ventura. Well, he's acting still, he's a governor. But anyway, that's exactly true, Brian. But when you guys were talking about the middleweights or whatever, the lightweight guys, they could use that, but Vince has never sold it. Didn't your mom ever tell you, don't watch TV, it's the boob tube. You brainwash people what to believe in and who your stars are.
It didn't work with me, though.
Well, I know, me neither, but you know what I'm saying? For a lot of people,
it did to a lot of people who see small guys on TV, and you know what I mean?
They don't know that they're that small until you see them in person. Or, until you're up close, but you look bigger on TV, right? And if you give them action, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I think for wrestling fans, anyway. That's what I judge.
It's just like we always get the emails on the show about Taz being 5'9", and
he's not even that.
I can't believe Chris Benoit's 5'9", and the whole thing is, of course they can't believe that because they're watching on TV.
That's right.
Nobody knows how high the ring ropes are, or how tall anybody is.
No.
Unless they're next to the Big Show. But all they know is what they see on TV. They're not seeing these guys in the airport. I mean, talk about internet fans being 1% of the population. Airport fans that see these guys in the airport. It's like 100th of 1%.
Well, the funny thing is like, and it's years and years ago, 20 years ago, one of the biggest macho TV stars, movie stars, was Stallone. And Stallone, and a lot of those guys are so much littler than anyone thinks, because the whole thing is you don't put them next to big guys, or if you put them next to a guy like Stallone's big guy was.
You take the camera angle and you look up to him. It's camera angles.
Yeah, but Stallone. Nobody knew Stallone was 5'7".
He's 170 at the most.
Maybe 170, 180. I'm sure he was less than that when he was really cut in those movies.
Oh, sure. That's
But on the screen, if you watched him on the screen, he played a heavyweight champion in Rocky, and he looked like a heavyweight because, they didn't have guys that were 220 next to him, or if they did, it was Mr. T, and they pretended he was 250. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
300.
Yeah. Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. I just don't see it really going too far with the stars they have at WCW. It's been pretty weak or pretty watered down, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see it going anywhere, Brian?
It's all changing tonight, and so,
Yeah, there's no way to say it right now. We could
don't know
say
where they're
tomorrow,
going.
but that won't be happening.
we will probably have a lot to say tomorrow. It's only going to be to each other, though.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
We're going to keep the vectors and just talk to each other from 2 o'clock.
I know. Tom, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Tom, you were voted the best guest.
And being a great guest.
That's right. You were a great guest. You were voted the best guest at the end of our 1 year. And I want to thank you for all the times you were on the show. And it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Well, thanks a lot, both of you guys. I wish you all the best in the future. Thanks for your sheet and that. If you get a chance to email me back what you think about that Fusian deal and that. Did you get that?
Well, you know what? There's some stuff there.
Yeah, there is, isn't it?
Boy, I don't understand. The more I learn, the less I understand about the decision to sell that thing to Vince. With other people out there and the decision, and believe me now, in hindsight, the decision to cancel that programming.
Yeah. It all fits, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it doesn't. I mean, I understand.
There has to be something there.
Yeah, there is. I'm sure there's something there. I'm sure a few cages got some calls and people got rattled or emails were sent, and I just have that thinking with Bischoff playing both sides of the fence and with that Time Warner deal, the lawsuit, federal court that they had with Six Flags over Georgia. I think there was something there.
I think a lot of the lawsuits made, like the people at AOL, just go, we just want to get away from this wrestling thing. This thing's a hornet's nest.
It's been a
it's a hornet's nest. We don't want it on our TV. Just get rid of it. It's a disaster. Yeah, that's.
Yeah. And Ted Turner was a good old boy. He was loyal to wrestling. Get rid of it. We don't want it.
That's the other thing. All of Ted Turner's boys, they're gone.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
One by one. I think there was another one who just got dumped recently. I forget who it was, but yeah, I mean So basically, the whole Ted Turner team is gone, and it's a whole new team.
Oh, yeah.
And wrestling was, let's face it, wrestling was part of the Ted Turner team.
Yep. And he was loyal to him, and the cons got a hold of it, and they screwed him. Anyway, thank you guys. You take care.
Okay, thanks so much, Tom.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I want to tell everyone real quick also, again, you can get both the Observer newsletter or Figure 4. There's information on the website at WrestlingObserver.com, or for the Observer, you can write to Wrestling Observer Newsletter. And it's P.O. Box 1228. That's 1228 Campbell, California, 95009. And we'll send you out information on that if you are interested. But you'll be able, with these newsletters, you'll at least be able to keep up with all the stuff that we would be talking about on the show. So we'll still be alive doing that. Al, who's next?
Yeah, we got some more callers, a couple of emails, though. Zach from Texas just wanted to let us know that he's had a blast listening to the show for the past 19 months. He started in January of 2000. He's put off subscribing to the Observer for over a year, largely because as a college student, he's changed addresses 4 times a year, but now he's going to do it. And Figure 4, he says if he can come up with the cash pretty quick. Don't really have anything profound to say except that you three guys have been great for putting up with those of us on the lower end of your caller spectrum for as long as you did. Best of luck to all of you, and thanks to the webcam I won from the now defunct Totally Intense Something Something video game show. Peace, Zach Adams from Houston, Texas. And then he says, my name is Zach, and my anti-drug is Wrestling Observer Live. Shit, anyone know a good heroin dealer in South Texas? Just throw a little levity there. Coming up next, we've got Nick in Orlando.
Nick, what's going on?
Hi, Dave. Hi, Brian. I just want to say I'm sad that the show is going off the air. It's been fun for the last 2 years. One question I had. One question I always, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but All Japan Women, I remember back in 1997, they were on the verge of bankruptcy. How are they doing today?
They're limping along. I mean, they didn't go under, and I didn't think they were going to last because they were way deep in. A lot of it was the owners had purchased a lot of real estate during the boom period, and then I think the real estate market in Japan went down, and they had I think they had a lot of debts from that, and it kind of really hurt the wrestling business, but it's still alive. A lot of the women left for other groups and everything like that, but that's right, they survived 4 years with no money. Give them credit to somehow pulled it off.
And the women keep coming back under different promotion names, like you got Neo versus All Japan, and
well, a lot of them split off to form their own company when things were bad. And most of those, I think Neo's the only one that's not around. I think a lot of them are real small. Japanese women wrestling, though, is not like, from popularity standpoint, it's way down from what it was, in the early 90s when that thing was, God, that was awesome. That was a great period.
Yeah. Also, another question I had, why in 1998 did Toshiaki Kawada only hold the Triple Crown for 1 month after they built up him winning it at the Tokyo Dome, and then he dropped it to Kobashi right after that?
I think that it was just one of those things where Kobashi's always been more charismatic than Kawada and a bigger draw, so I think that it was just maybe it was one of those things where it was their way to get it to Kobashi, but they didn't want Kobashi to beat Misawa because the Tokyo Dome thing was built around Kawada's first win over Misawa because people had waited. I mean, even though I know there had been like small matches where he'd beat him, but never in a big time match, and so they figured that was better for the Tokyo Dome, but they wanted, the belt to go on Kobashi, who was the younger of those three and theoretically the most healthy. Although I guess in hindsight, when we look at where they are, he's probably, from a physical standpoint, the oldest of the three because he may never, that poor guy.
Right. One match I just saw recently for the first time. It was I don't know if you remember it. It was a number one contenders match between Kobashi and Steve Williams from I think July '93, and it was like he
the
took
real
three.
Good one. Was it the real good one where, I'm trying to remember, where they debuted that dropping the guy on the head for like the first time?
Yeah, well, it was the first singles match he did, and he took like 3 backdrop drivers on the head to finish it.
That was an incredible match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing, how does... Well, I know like there's been like 5 different versions of Wing over the years. Like, how does that work in Japan? Like, who owns the rights to that?
I think that's Mickey Ibaragi owns it, and he just like would. I think that he owned it in all the incarnations, and just would get some money together, start it up, run out of money. He left with a real bad rep and because he didn't pay a lot of buildings and things like that. So, and then he would just get some money from a new source, start it up for a little while, and it would go out of business again.
Yeah, and now it's coming back in August.
Yeah, that's right. The latest version. Yeah.
And Brian, you said you wanted to like see the return of like 5 weeks of vignettes on WWF, like to introduce new wrestlers. Does that mean you like want to see like the return of Dusty Rhodes fixing toilets?
Well, not all of them.
The better vignettes.
Just giving people personality.
Like the Stalker vignette when he was in the jungle.
Right.
Oh, God. Oh, God. I tell you, I was looking back like 5 years ago, and 5 years ago was when they, I think, introduced like all these characters at once. So, it was the Goon and Freddie Joe Floyd and T.L. Hopper and and the Who and all that, and Who with Jim Neidhart. And I'm reading this, and I'm going like, oh my God, sometimes we think that like some of the booking is bad. Yeah, but I mean, it's like, my God, it's worlds better than it was 5 years ago.
Right.
And that predicated a huge boom period.
Yeah, for WCW, it did.
Freddie Joe Floyd, the catalyst.
Yeah, I remember staying in line for 10 hours at the Tampa Ice Palace just so I could see the Goon versus Who in a match.
Yeah.
Look at old days.
Okay. We're going to get running, okay?
All right, thanks.
I want to get to as many calls as possible. Real quick, I want to thank Marcos. Just right before the show, I got, one time I was talking about how on the New Japan pay-per-view, the guy who taped it for me, missed the first couple of matches, and he sent me those matches that were missed, plus a bunch of low-key matches. So, sorry I won't be able to talk about them on the show, but I'm going to watch that tape in the next 2 or 3 days. So I want to thank you very much for that. And Al, who's next? Al is gone.
So, no, I'm still here. Hector in Texas is next.
Hector, what's going on?
Hello, I lost my smile today. No more psychology today. Hey, no, just kidding. One time I said on behalf of the chat room, I made a comment and people hated me and therefore it, but I'm gonna make it this time again. On behalf of the chat room, I'd just like to say that it's been great listening to your show, and it's like even though Nitro sucked and Raw may suck some weeks, it's always 2 good hours of your show that at least kept me going. Sometimes that I felt like I wanted to quit watching wrestling. So thank you. And
well, the one thing with wrestling is that, like, as down as it may get, there's always going to be something good on the horizon. I just don't know where and when. But somehow or other, And
you can always find something entertaining about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes
but
more so when it's at its worst point.
But sometimes, sometimes that real entertaining stuff, like, it's like, say, those Thunders, where we could kind of joke about them at the end when they were really bad. They still were, for the most part, a waste of 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You think so? I still look back and go,
yes.
I wish Thunder were still on.
I wish that
maybe
10
there's
minutes
something
I
wrong
could...
with me.
No, I don't know. I mean,
I just think back to like that interview with Stevie Ray and Dallas Page and Kevin Nash. When the lights were swinging back and forth and Nash's eyes were going, what the hell is going on here? And you got to watch it on TV. Things like that. Lex Luger taking the worst bumps you ever saw in your whole life.
The fact is, that's the kind of stuff that we will never see again on WWF television.
That is true.
Stevie Ray commentary.
Stevie. Hoovy.
Yeah. What about, do you think the WWF will be so stupid? Do you think the WWF will be so stupid to put Linda or Stephanie as the leader of ECW or something like that?
No. If it's ECW, they can't. They can't do that. It has to be Heyman and hey, you know what? In that role, Heyman would probably be awesome.
Yeah. And did you get my email about War Games putting it in the Invasion pay-per-view?
Yes, I did.
What do you think about that?
Well, I mean,
I don't think it's going to happen, but
I mean, it could have been done. I mean, they could have done stipulations. There's so many things that could have been done, and they just weren't. And now they're going to restart, and we'll see. I mean, maybe they'll make it all good now. They have to. They better.
They got to change something.
I know.
Well, all right, guys. Thank you very much, and I hope you start soon somewhere else because you guys are the best out there in wrestling. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, guys.
Hey, how about the triple tier cage?
Which one? The one from the movie?
The
or
uncensored Doomsday cage match.
Yeah, with David Arquette and DDP and Jarrett?
Yeah, that one. I was actually thinking of the original.
Oh, the original. Oh, boy.
They got the rights to it now.
Yeah, well, I guess they do.
Hey, guys, just some more emails that have come in. This one from Bobby says, a sad day in wrestling to think I'll never hear the guy from Puerto Rico who called from a payphone ever again.
Well, you weren't going to hear him anyway, so it doesn't matter.
That's right. And another one, Dave, if somewhere down the road you get the opportunity to do the show again, if Brian and Al are not involved, turn it down. Good luck. My anti-drug is masturbating to Mae Young. I hope that's not an anti-drug.
Wow.
Another guy,
scary.
John says, only one question for eYada. Why didn't you exercise your options in the futures market? I hear grain is performing well due to rising Asian demand.
Yeah, what happened to that guy? We had him forever.
And then he said, alternatively,
Can we make fun of the commercials now that this is done?
Yes, I think we can.
I hated that Radon commercial. I hated that Radon commercial. I hated the grains market commercial that guy did for like 2 straight years. The grain market was looking up or whatever. Oh, my God.
Finally, he says, alternatively, we could all chip in for that guy's book on how to get government funding for your big idea. And finally...
Now, he'll be around. He'll stay around.
Of course. And finally, this last email, and then we'll get back to the callers. This is, sorry to hear about from Thomas Green. He says, Dave, sorry to hear about the death of eYada.com, but here's the eYada Memorial Top 10 Ways for the WWF to make back their money that they lost last year. Number 10, Tough Enough action figures complete with Daryl's dirt-kicking action and crying noises. Number 9, WWF carrots. Number 8, Superstar Conversation audio tapes recorded by Sean Stasiak himself. Number 7, a stereo / meat grinder to play those cassettes. Number 6, Buff Bagwell Wrestling Buddies. Wait, the Judy Bagwell Wrestling Buddy called into the stores, and the Buff Buddy won't be there.
Oh, that was too good.
Number 5, Best of Billy Gunn and Big Show tapes, because let's face it, everyone needs blank tapes. Number 4, have all of the WWF belts on ECW alumni. Wait, that was from Paul Heyman's top 10 list. Number 3, new TV series, The B Team, starring the 24 guys who were brought over from WCW. Number 2, Arn Anderson Moon Landing playset. And finally, the number 1 eYada Memorial Top 10 Ways for the WWF to make back their money that they lost last year list. Hire the Lord and Savior of Wrestling, Kevin Nash.
They probably will.
You'll be getting that one.
Hey, Brian, how did you like? There's a magazine in Japan called Americana, and they did a big interview with Kevin Nash.
I heard about that.
I just got the issue, and it is so funny. Kevin Nash is like explaining, what went wrong with WCW, and one of his things was, they didn't put enough emphasis on the belt. We got to keep the credibility on the belt.
They did.
I know.
He's
what was
right.
the other one? Yeah, I know. But Kevin's got the hunger. Just so you don't, in case you don't know, it's like he will
return.
He will return, and now that the stock market went down, and he probably needs another year of work to go, so to speak. He's just looking forward to coming back in shape, and I actually saw some pictures of him. And he is in much better shape. And which doesn't surprise me at all. This is from Trevor Shapiro. I want to read this. He goes, this is a sample of my favorite moments from the show. Any show with Raven. He goes, Tom Zink was good, but he was overrated. Raven was my favorite guest ever. The banana story. That story was, I just threw that in one day.
And it became legendary.
Yes. Missy Hyatt's last show. You know what? I'm glad we did that show just so we did one show like that. And never did another one. Any call from the guy that went WEW's EWIC, the Hogan mark, who said that Hogan was still the most requested celebrities at Children's Hospital.
John in Florida, if you're listening, please call today.
Yes.
I want to hear the story about how you rode in Hogan's Viper again.
Yes. Rey Mysterio Jr. show. I don't know why, but I like this show so much, and nobody praises it. I remember he was very good. The dogs barking at Frank Shamrock. The Sin Show, where everybody was in character and you seemed ready to hang yourself. That was the worst show, by the way.
I enjoyed that show.
Yeah, because you kept your mouth shut
sitting
the whole
there
time.
And saying absolutely nothing.
That's right. That was before you
listening to you.
You were still shy, and I'm just like, oh God, this was horrible. Lesbians phoning in for Jerry Lynn. Jim Cornette being faced with a question about having to save at least one of his arch foes from drowning and choosing Vince Russo to save so nobody else would see what he did to him. That was an amazing bit of quick thinking, let me tell you.
Yes, it was.
Zach
Except
Arnold
I think
being
he's
asked
probably
on...
been contemplating that for a long time.
Yes. Zach Arnold being asked on the show if it was true that he is completely crazy. But my favorite moment, miles above the rest, was a caller named Adolf. He only called one time. He sounded very young, started to ask a question, and we had this big guy, maybe his dad, yell, "Adolf, get off the phone!" I laughed so hard at that one I almost cried. I played for my girlfriend, even though she hates wrestling. She laughed, too. I could base a call around this. My favorite moment, oh, God. Anyway, this is all cut off. Anyway, let's go back to the phones.
We've got Dave in Georgia up next.
David, what's up?
Oh, man, I tell you, Dave. I have been a fan since '85. I remember the first time I saw the Observer. It was in the back room of a wrestling academy that they had at ATA Karate in Marietta when Convict Snake showed it to me, and I just had to have it. I mean, it was just the greatest thing in the world. Your newsletter's awesome, and it was just great. I mean, I loved it so much that I went out and even asked Bischoff in '93 to autograph one at the Crystal Chandelier, and, well, he didn't, but...
He drew a middle finger on it?
No, he didn't. He said it's a dirt sheet. He wouldn't autograph it. Greg Gagne wasn't too happy about it neither, but then again, when is he happy? But
yeah,
I've been a fan of Observer and yourself since '93, and I've been a fan of the show since day one. And I remember on day one you said, I don't even know if there's enough wrestling news to cover 2 hours. Well,
I was so wrong, wasn't I?
We found that out, brother. I tell you right now, some things just are too good to last forever, and this is one of them. This has been such a great show. I mean, my fiance has started listening to you, and she enjoys it. I enjoy it. You've had some great guests, Zink, Lance Russell.
Lance Russell's awesome. I want to say that you're right. Oh, what a great guest.
It's just so great and everything. I'm just in awe. I'm saddened to see it go. I really am, and I hate that. I wish it could continue. But it's kind of the same feeling that I had with the Shinonamaki Post when it left us, because that was just one of the good newsletters back then, too. And to be honest,
I was sad when that thing was gone. That thing, before Brian came around, that was the funniest thing I ever read on wrestling.
That is why I'm so glad I tuned into the show and got Alvarez's Figure 4. It's just got some of the greatest stories and all. We're both, me and the fiance, Crystal, and I, we're just such big fans of you. I just hope a few things. I just hope that if they want to compete with the comedy shows on Monday night, that they remember 3 words: learning the ropes.
Good point.
And they think twice about that, and I just hope Vince doesn't go out and buy your archives and start up Radio WWF again. Because believe me, he'd mess it up. Look at what he's doing now.
He's got the golden. Hey, he's still got the golden opportunity. It was only one horrible week.
2.
2. Okay.
Well, get rid of Buff a good time.
That's right. It is a good time. We're never going to see Buff again, except on when we're going to see? We're going to see him in Hogan's promotion if Hogan ever gets off the ground.
Boy. Once again, it's been great. I've really loved it. It's just awesome. I hope y'all can show up on radio again sometime. It's just been a great ride, and I appreciate it so much you let me come along for it.
Okay. Thank you so much, David. I really appreciate it.
Al,
who's next?
Next up, Ed in Texas.
Ed,
hey guys, I was doing pretty good till I heard the news when I got on the phone. So what exactly is going on? Why are you going off the air?
eYada is closing down as of the end of the show. We are the last show on the station.
Oh wow, well that really sucks. I really enjoyed this show, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to people like Mick Foley and Jim Cornette and Missy Hyatt, and I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And God, I have some questions now. Let me go ahead and ask them. On Buff Bagwell.
Yes.
I know he's been a jerk like the last few years, but has he always been a jerk, or is it just something that happened over time?
I don't know, because I don't remember him being a jerk years ago. I think maybe it was like he got around Luger, and but
or maybe it was just he was not in a position to act like a jerk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because when you're on your way up,
if you're way down low on the totem pole, you can think whatever you want, but you're still way down low on the totem pole, and you can't exactly act it out.
Yeah.
Okay. And another thing I was going to ask about, have you heard any word about China? Are they going to force her to come back and lose the title, or are they just going to
No.
forget about it?
She's pretty much history, and I think that they're going their own way, and she's going her way. You know, we played that interview with China from Thursday.
Uh-huh.
You know, I don't know, Brian, if you saw this the same way I did, but when I'm listening to her talk,
well, I couldn't hear it. So.
Oh, you can. Okay. Well, she was basically saying that, like, well, you know, they weren't going to let me have the world title, you know, which she meant the men's world title, and you know, they really didn't want me beating men anymore. And then she was saying how, like, of course I was too experienced for all the women, which of course is led to a deluge of emails after that comment. But the thing is how I read it. You know, she goes, you know, like she was just going like, I guess there was nothing left to do with the character. And my feeling was okay, basically what you're saying is you weren't going to put any of these women over, and with that in mind, if you're in the women's division and you won't put any women over, there is nothing left to do with the character. And it's like, it's kind of sad that characters get like that to that level where they're just going to leave rather than like lose one wrestling match to anyone. It's weird.
What I was kind of hoping that they would do is, since they're trying to give Jackie a little bit of a push for Tough Enough, that maybe they could start a feud with them, and they could tell Jackie, look, if she doesn't want to put you over and sell for you, make her sell. Go ahead and have some fun out there on her. And
it's not going to happen.
Jackie is like 5'2", though.
Yeah, Chyna's way bigger than Jackie.
She is real big.
Yeah, but I mean,
that may not mean absolutely anything, but there is some size there.
Yeah, well, that is true.
And Chyna's probably much stronger too. Although Jackie is very strong for her size.
Maybe not lately.
Yes, you're probably right, because Jackie looks like she's still lifting, and Chyna is just doing everything to lose weight so she can get in the Hollywood thing.
Lifting the.
Which I don't think that's going to help her. I think what made her a draw in the movie in the first place was she was this big giant Amazon woman, and now
but the Hollywood people don't want. You know, they have a certain.
Yeah, but
thing
they would if they wanted her in Terminator 3. You don't want this Terminator that looks like a beanpole.
Well, she can always put some of it back.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that hard to get back muscle that you once had. That's easy.
Okay. And like I say, I'm very disappointed that the show is ending. And I'd like to make a comment to all the listeners out there, and that is to email the law and ask to have Dave have a bigger part of the show and to make Brian a regular guest.
Maybe we'll do that. I mean, hey, we'll be alive in some form on the law on the weekends every Saturday and Sunday, and hopefully maybe something can be done with the law, you know, or do something during the week somewhere. You know, I mean, I'll tell you the one thing, and I didn't know this until the show started, and I was scared to death of it. You know, with the idea of 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, I was going like, what the hell are we going to do for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week? But you know, I mean, in the last couple of weeks, it's like these 2 hours whiz by so fast. I'm going like, you know, I mean,
why not do 3?
Well, you know, it's so funny because in December or January, I actually kind of like, you know, it wasn't like I kind of, you know, requested that. I go, you know what, we could do 3, you know, so it can be done, and I think it's very viable. I mean, I think this thing's very viable on radio. I'd love to do, you know, I'd love to have the opportunity to do this like in markets and you know, they do some sort of a syndicated thing, and I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Maybe it can happen.
Think of all the new phone calls we'd get.
There is a syndicated wrestling show on Sunday nights called Pile Driver.
Well, there's a bunch of them out there.
Pile Driver is a syndicated produced show by actually a company that I formerly worked for, MJI Broadcasting, and they do a good job. But you know what? I don't want to toot anybody's horn, but our show would kick its ass.
Oh yeah, definitely your show's a lot better. But anyway, thanks a lot, guys, for taking my time, and once again, I really appreciate your show, and best of luck to you guys in the future.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone who's calling in and everything like this and emailing us.
Emails, the comment board, chat room.
I mean, it's really, you know, it's really made me feel like, you know, and all of us, I think that, you know, we really accomplished something. And I also want to thank Bob Ryder for what he wrote today. I do appreciate that, because he had 2 ways he could have wrote it, and he wrote it in a very nice way, and I just want to say that. So, anybody else to talk about before we go back to the calls? No.
Are we looking for calls?
Al?
We've got tons. Jeremiah from Ontario is on.
Jeremiah, what's up?
How you doing, Dave?
Doing good.
Chris, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Woodstock, Ontario, Canada.
Oh.
Oh, no, go ahead. Al was talking to somebody else.
Oh, okay. I just heard him, so I was like, all right. But, Dave, I was wondering how, on your Observer, I've never got it yet, but how much Japanese compared to American wrestling do you cover? Because in the show, I mean, obviously more people are interested in American wrestling than Japanese. You seem to cater to that, but I was wondering in the Observer, how much do you cover?
We cover whatever the news is for that week. If there's a lot, we cover the Japanese big shows pretty similar to the American big shows. And we cover,
And the news, same way.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, we have, there's a lot more American news. I mean, if I look at the breakdown, I would say, like, most of the Observer is probably WWF and WWF related. But put it this way, if there's a big story in Japan, we cover it in every bit as much detail as a big story in the WWF.
Right.
So it's just like whatever the news is for that week.
Well, what's your thoughts on Asian Cougar? Have you seen
I have not seen enough of him.
Really?
Yeah.
He's a great worker.
Really. I haven't seen. I mean, I've just seen the IWA stuff. And a lot of those things, because they don't have regular TV in Japan, I don't see them other than the clips on the. They have the Samurai TV News,
right.
And so I watch a lot of that. So, but you don't get it. You don't know who's good or bad, and the crowds are so small for these small groups.
You haven't got any,
you know what I mean?
The DDT stuff.
Yeah, I have seen I've seen clips of DDT, but I have not seen like a DDT show or anything like that.
Right. Well, he's actually a really good worker, and I was wondering how do you judge like a match for like a 5-star match, because like you said the other day that you thought that the Austin Rock match WrestleMania was just as good as like the Muta Tenryu match just happened. And it just seems, since there's such different style, how would you rate the difference? Because I mean, obviously
the intensity.
I think it's just based mostly on the separate style.
Right.
Yeah, the intensity. Yeah, you can't judge them by the other
context
style.
of the match style.
So basically, you like compare contrast to other Japanese matches and stuff like that.
Well, compared to what the crowd's buying. I mean, if the crowd's going crazy,
right.
Then obviously the wrestlers have done something real. If the crowd's going crazy based on how the wrestlers have built the match, because sometimes the crowd can go crazy because some girl takes her top off. It's the same thing. But if it's from that, then I think that's sort of like a universal language. And when you get, when you're watching a match and you're kind of so into it, then that's kind of a so. And if they suck you into it, however they do it, and they get you where you care about who wins and loses, and you get into those near falls or get into those moves, and you go, I think that's the quality of a good match is that you, by the time it's over, you're caring about it. If you're watching it and you're just not caring about it, and they're not doing anything to make you care, then that wasn't as good a match.
Yeah, that's true. If you think the past 2 weeks of TV hasn't been that great, wait till if Hogan gets a TV, that's going to be terrible.
I'll tell you what, Hogan's stuff is going to be really. I hope he gets something, because something needs to be out there, for an alternative just for the guys. And I don't know that he will get anything, but it's going to be real sad when he gets it, because I think it's going to flop miserably. I just think he's yesterday's news, and I think the people that he's going to go with, like your Jim Duggans and stuff. I mean, that nostalgia wrestling, I think people will be into it for one show, because it's like, and then after that, it's like, I just don't see it having legs. I really don't.
I mean, because if you think, how Vince pushes big guys, imagine what Hogan's going to do. It's going to be the worst.
Hogan's going to push his friends, and it's going to be a vehicle for Hogan, and then they're going to fill it up. I mean, the problem is it's not so much big guys as much as I think there's going to be a lot of old guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, your show's been amazing the past, whatever I've heard from it. So I hope you do get a new show, and it would be great to hear.
I hope so, too.
All right,
thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay.
Hey, guys, just a couple more emails here from Johnny. Is there any truth to the rumors that Buff Bagwell is going to sign a multi-$1,000 contract with the Wendy's establishment? Also, a guy writes in with his favorite moments, Tommy, obviously referring to Tommy Dreamer, the last Missy Hyatt show. Tom Zenk's Ole Anderson story about sucking cock for $750,000.
I think that story will live forever.
Yes. Brian Blair, Lance Russell, Ricky Steamboat, Ray Stevens. That Vince Russo show, because he talked bullshit the whole time. Can't believe he said that they had long-term plans. Fuck him. Bob Mould, awesome show. And Raven, me and my brother were sitting here listening to this yesterday, and my brother asked, what would happen if they ever canceled Dave Meltzer? I said it would never happen. Thanks, guys.
I don't think they would ever cancel us. The station. That's the one thing is and I think that's mainly due to the listenership and everything, and this being such a popular show. I mean, there were periods in eYada where shows were getting canceled, and the one thing was I knew that we were never going to get canceled. We were going down with the ship. I mean, they were going to last as long as the station lasted. So that was like a good feeling, I guess.
Exactly. We got some more here. It says, hey, Dave, Brian, and Al. This is from Jeff. He says, greatest moment, caller ever, the pots and pans guy and all his impersonators. Dave, I've been only listening to your show since Russo took over WCW.
That was too long.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for turning me into a solid wrestling fan and showing me things behind the scenes. That was from Hunter. P.S. My name is Hunter, and my anti-drug is smashing my head into the wall in morning of missing Wrestling Observer Live. Paul says, I just want to say thanks for the great times on the show. Hopefully we'll all have taken something great away from your show. And ask Brian when Shawn Michaels is coming back. Just kidding.
Never.
Yeah. Finally, this one.
Hey, speaking of those anti-drug commercials, I want to run down another one. The kid who's anti-drug was writing, and he wrote about drugs.
Yeah. And finally, this one from the WWF Public Relations. I don't know if this is true or not. It said, just to let you know, we've had a good think about it, and seeing as we need the publicity, we're happy for our guys to do the show starting tomorrow. Hey, thanks for nothing, you bastards. Charles from California is up next.
Charles, what's happening?
Hey, how you doing, Dave? Well,
hey, doing really good. God, Charles, you've been with us from like day one.
Yes, sir. You know what? You guys are actually responsible for me even taking an interest in the internet. I mean, up until then, no one touched the computer in this house except my wife. I stayed as far away from it as possible.
That's right.
And, when I found out about your show, man, I went out and spent $4,000 on a new computer system and started actually fooling around with the internet.
Yeah, and then you
You get your money back now?
Well, no, actually, I'm real competent on the computer now, but I never had to be before. But I just wanted to say, guys, I don't know. I turned the show on about 14 minutes into the show, and I felt like I had just been hit in the back of the head. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I have to give you guys sincere thanks, Al, Brian, and Dave. You guys have definitely been a class act. It's been great for me as one of the older callers to get a chance to listen to and actually talk to some of the legends that I grew up watching.
You know, that's been so much. That's been so much fun for me too. You know, like some of the guys, like I tell you, like the Stevens show last week. You know that we did. Or the week before last, actually. I was so happy. You know, when I got the news, the one thing was I was so happy that we got that show in because I don't know what anyone else thought of the show, but to me, just there was something about that show I really liked. Listening to those guys talk about, you know, when Bockwinkel, and not so much Bockwinkel, but Billy Graham and Bastien, and to an extent Flair, and they're talking about, like, you know, that period, that early AWA period, and they're looking back and they're older men now, and they're going like, this was the greatest time of our life, and I just thought there was something really, you know, there's a lot of good in wrestling, there's a lot of bad in wrestling, but you know, these guys, you know, like that have been through a lot of physical pain, and God knows these guys today are going to go through a lot more physical pain than these guys we're talking about did, because they do so much more. But they're looking back, and I mean, in their, you know, they can go back to that period when they were on top, and they can beam about it, and they can, you know, their thoughts are good thoughts, not bad thoughts. I just thought there was something very nice about that.
Yeah, I did too. It was very pure. I really enjoyed it. Another show that was on that level to me was the tribute to Gordon Soley. That show.
Oh yeah.
That one, I'll always remember that. I got a chance to hear.
I got to get Jack Briscoe on the show.
Briscoe and DiBiase all in one show, you know.
Yeah, it's the only time we got Briscoe on the show, and Jack's had health problems for years now, and I hope he's doing well.
Yeah, and basically he's just kind of stayed out of the limelight for so long. So to hear him, I mean, that was, you know.
Man, it's too bad we're going down, because I want to get Brian Blair back on. He was so good the last time.
Brian Blair was shockingly good. And that guy, he said things that I couldn't believe I was listening to when he told the story about the pencil and all the other antics. Les Thatcher has always been a favorite guest of mine. I've always enjoyed Jim Cornette. I got a chance to talk to Harley Race, Dory Funk, G.U., Terry Funk, even Dusty Rhodes. You know, those were all special moments for me. I really enjoyed the show where Raven and Conan at the same time, even though those guys got in a lot of trouble for doing it.
Conan got in trouble for everything Raven said.
It was a great show, though. I got a chance to actually call in and talk to those guys. Jim Cornette's always good. Bob Mould.
Bob Mould was excellent.
John Muse, too. I can't forget John Muse.
You know, it's funny. I want to make a real quick comment about John Muse, because I was actually wanting to get him on the show. You know, John, partially because of this show, you know, John was hired, actually. I mean, they had a deal cut and everything to go to WCW with Eric Bischoff and to book the Cruiserweight division. And, you know, of course, that fell through.
Yeah.
And he was, I guess, up for a WWF writing position. And he wrote, and I saw that he sent to me the basic treatise that he sent to the WWF, for a writing position, and it was actually much better than the one he sent to Eric Bischoff. I mean, it was the one he sent to Bischoff was very good. The one he sent to WWF, I told him, I go, man, you really have done well. And of course, he didn't get the job because the storyline that he went with,
Benoit and Jericho pushed all the way to the top.
Yes, it was. Jericho got pushed all the way to the top in that one. Yes, that was the kiss of death. And it was tremendous because the whole deal was, and I forget the whole thing, John's not going to be able to say it on this show. But it was basically that Jericho would win the WWF title and then jump to, really, which is funny because they sort of used a little bit of this, that he would jump to WCW the next day with the belt, and there's a long, involved 6 months thing that was tremendous. So John is, John really had a lot of potential as a writer, and I hope someone, picks him up. Bob Mould had a lot of potential as a writer. His timing was all wrong because, he was in for 2 weeks and they hired Russo as the head writer and their philosophies were wrong. And then, the other chance, everybody was injured and it was just not the right time and the right team when he, was in there, and then Russo came back again, and, the timing just
Well, there are people interested in him. I know.
Yeah.
Man, I was going to ask you, Dave, what were the chances of us seeing maybe a booking committee put together of Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez, and John Muse to work anywhere?
Not too good.
Yeah.
Maybe FMLL.
Well, you guys know any advice we can get from you guys, any suggestions you make, we put them to use immediately.
When's your next show anyway?
Good question, Dave. I am not sure. I'm always behind on that stuff. Basically, what I do is I go to meetings with companies, like when they're trying to get television and stuff like that. And I never stay up. I always know probably 2 weeks in advance before the next show is coming up.
When it comes
storylines already input though.
When it comes to Lucha Libre, there is. That's the one thing that may have a chance, just because, if you get on Univision, that's the big one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Univision is such a big station, and the Hispanic market, the WWF really doesn't even go after that market. So there is that void, and especially in California, but all over the country, that market is growing very rapidly.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that. We've seen with AAA, there is some success there. And, I think AAA, God, I have a hard time even watching that TV. And I usually don't. And I think that, there's something there. I would love to see, all these different forms of wrestling, just like Japan, where you've got, many different varieties of wrestling, so you can, instead of going oh, God, we've got this one thing, and we don't like it, or even if we do like it, if it's the only thing, we can go well, if Vince won't push cruiserweights, we've got this guy, and they're pushing the cruiserweights, and we can see this kind of action, or this group is pushing shoot style, so we can see this kind of action, or this group is doing, kids cartoon wrestling with guys with, funny masks, or something, just like variety of things.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of our future plan. We want to hit all those different demographics. Did Carlos, by any chance, get a chance to tell you what happened on our last show?
Oh yeah, with AAA and everything, yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of a disappointment, but my view on it is I'm not going to try to hold any hard feelings. I'll just save it for later on down the line. We can have business off of it, as far as I'm concerned. We can do a feud with them if they want.
Okay.
I guess I'm going to sign off, guys, but I wanted to also express a little appreciation for the Observer Live chat room. There's a great group of guys in there, too, and especially the monitors, Triple C, Hector Ruiz, H.C. Harry, G-Han, Joe, my heroes, Chris from Long Island, Chaz, and Beckley. And thank those guys for all the entertainment they provided as well, and their support of the show.
Yeah, I want to
They are an entertaining group of guys.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, we all had fun for 2 hours, 5 days a week. It was really good.
Yeah, and hopefully this is not the end. Hopefully you guys will be on and you'll get another regular gig, and I'll keep in contact. You guys keep in contact too. I'll keep emailing you to death. So.
Okay, cool.
All right, guys. Take care, and thank you so much for everything. You guys are indeed a class act.
Thank you very much. Okay, who's next?
Next up is Larry in Montreal, guys.
Larry, what's going on?
Hello.
Hey.
Larry.
Hi, guys. Sad day, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I simply want you to know that I love the show. I love eYada. I had a good time. But keep talking, Wrestling Dave, and I'll listen to you on the law. Well, listen,
thank you very much.
I want to talk about Vince McMahon.
Mm-hmm.
Vince, that slime, he seems to forget one thing. When he tries buying them out, just how about having the same thing done to himself? He really thinks that he's going to wipe them all out one at a time? I'm afraid he's mistaken. That damn slime idiot. And that's all that there is to it. Have a good day.
Thank you. Not sure what that was all about, but
well,
anyway.
I think he's got to he's got to stop holding his Johnson a little bit there.
I think he's the guy that writes those promos with the letter I.
God, I know.
And gentlemen, next up, Chris in Georgia.
Chris, what's going on?
Hey, Dave, how are you?
It's going pretty good.
Good. Last show. You know, I hate this because I just discovered you guys a month and a half ago, and now first time calling in. My wife is actually on the other line. We've been listening to you guys. We love the wrestling. We just actually started about a year and a half ago, checking out wrestling, and somehow we've learned so much about it. And we just big time into WWF, and our friends who are also in the wrestling, we're all in radio, and we all talked about doing our own show. And then I found you guys, and it's like, guys, we could never do a show. Have you heard what these guys are doing in Wrestling Observer? And being in radio, man, I think she sent you an email earlier. You guys, you know, when a show dies, it doesn't mean the show's dead, obviously. You just find another venue, which is what you guys need to do, obviously.
That's what we need to do.
That's what we are hoping for.
Yeah, and we were just thinking, you were talking, you made the joke about talking to each other tomorrow about the show. It's like, man, why don't they just record the show and upload it to their website and just take your emails, whatever, anything, just to survive until you can find a venue. But I want to talk to you about a couple of things, actually. OVW, first of all. You guys have talked about how great OVW is. And
I don't want to say it's great. It's a great, but it's great that the WWF has it.
Right. Okay.
Because they need something like
but
that.
You were talking about getting the tapes and watching the stories and watching how they do things.
I love the booking's really good. Brian just watched the last TV leading
Saturday Night Slam.
The Saturday Night Slam. Brian, you should talk about that Saturday Night Slam a little bit, like what you liked about it, because I know you really liked that show.
Yeah, they just did it. They did a 2-hour Saturday Night Slam. It was hyping up the Last Dance show at the Louisville Gardens, and it was just like, I don't even want to say it was a commercial, even though it was a commercial for the live event, but, you know, they had some matches on there, and all the matches, you know, all the angles led up to the show. They had the interviews. They had clips. They basically explained every single angle and made you actually want to see the show. And they also had historical clips of famous matches and interviews with guys from the Louisville Gardens. And, I mean, I got an email from Dave after I emailed him about it, and he's talking about how they have a $40 budget to edit. And
But no, basically.
But it was cheap. It's a very cheap budget.
He does those videos on no money, and they're tremendous wrestling videos.
Who was it? I don't remember who it was. I can't remember. I remember. But anyway, somebody was making fun of their video production and their budget and everything like that. But I mean, for what they have, they do a hell of a job with it. And I enjoyed that show so much, and I just loved Ohio Valley and EMLL. And I think if you have a satellite, and you don't get Galavision for EMLL. And if you really want some good wrestling and you don't, pop up the 1995 for the OVW shows, and you don't know what you're missing.
Really? Now, I've been to their site and stuff, and the month at a time tapes they've got. I was wondering how far back. Should I go back to the spring, or should I just pick it up from every day?
I would pick it up from now.
Yeah?
Yeah, because, the thing was, I was watching stuff on there from before I started getting the tapes, and they showed highlights and clips, and it all made sense. So, you can start now, and it's not like starting somewhere like if you started in the WWF today.
Right.
You'd have some angles that took place on Thursday that were completely forgotten. That would not be the case in OVW.
Absolutely.
Well, the other thing I want to mention about OVW was good if you're like a real serious fan. You're going to see all these guys, because not all of them, but there's 3 or 4 of these guys that 5 years from today they're going to be superstars in this business, and you're going to say hey, I saw, whether it's Randy Orton or Brock Lesnar or whomever, I saw them before anyone else saw them. And, I saw their, not so much their first matches now because, they've been around for a little while, but their early matches, and it's just kind of fun. That's
plus
one
so
of the
many
things.
fresh faces,
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're fresh faces. That's one of the things also I like about the Japanese when they do the pay-per-views is the first and I enjoy the first and second matches often more than the main events, because I'm looking at these guys going like, hey, I can see the future of Japanese wrestling with Hiroshi Tanahashi or Katsuyori Shibata. Whereas like Chono, Chono's a big star and he's in rough shape right now, by the way. He's in the hospital. And I don't know any more details about it, but it's like, Chono's not going to show me anything new. I mean, these guys, they're going to get better every time I watch them, so it's kind of fun to see them at this level.
Mm-hmm. It's listening to you guys. We sit around, we watch the shows, and we go, we could do this, this, and this, and I listen to you guys talk about WWF and their booking and what they've been doing, and but you make us feel like we're so out of the loop. You talk about the Japanese, which we're not even in the loop of that, and the Lucha, and what do we know about Lucha? We watched.
Lucha's hard. I mean, you got to really. I mean, I will say
totally
this.
different.
Yeah, well, the Lucha, like if you tune into the Lucha for the first time, I mean, it's going to take. I remember when I had friends who were big time Lucha fans in the '80s, and I had watched it from time to time because growing up in California, you kind of know what's around, but you kind of don't really mentally get into it because you can't speak Spanish. Mm-hmm. And they were just going like, this was, I guess '80s because it was Negro Casas and El Hijo del Santo, and that was actually the match that got me really interested in Lucha. Was the name of the match in Los Angeles, but they basically like would talk to me and talk to me and talk to me, and I just kept watching it, and for weeks and weeks I didn't get it, and somehow after watching it for about a year, I kind of knew who everyone was, and I kind of understood the style and kind of knew what they were doing. And then when I started going to the live matches, it was like it became the same as American wrestling to me. It's just you are used to the rhythm.
You become accustomed to it when you see it after a while.
Right. But at the beginning, everything looks wrong. I mean, it's like like if I say Blue Panther is one of the most awesome workers in this business, and he is. And you watch Blue Panther, it won't show up right at the beginning, but if you watch it for a year, you'll go, Blue Panther is like really one of those awesome workers in this business.
Yeah.
Real quick, Lucha, definitely want to check those out because I want to talk to you about that. Real quick, we were at the show last night here in Augusta.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was backstage, actually. She's in radio, and I'm in radio. She was sponsoring stations. She went back there and met everybody and talked to some different people. Actually talked to Billy Kidman. I went back there with you and talked to Billy Kidman and said, anybody I could find. I was trying to find him and tell him, don't let Tori Wilson let that old man, open mouth kiss her again, please. But
at least he should get the Intercontinental title, right?
It's unbelievable.
Not the WCW Cruiserweight.
Unbelievable. But 3 out of here we are in Georgia, WCW country. 4 out of the 10 matches were WCW matches. The crowd was okay, not incredibly hot for it, but okay. And then but at one point there, right before the main event with Kane and Taker and DDP and Awesome, they had 3 WCW matches in a row, and weren't losing the crowd, but they were hammering into WCW. And like you guys are saying, I don't know if they can just do straight up WCW versus WCW. One last thing. I was front row, and it's the first time I've ever been front row at a match, and it was fantastic to sit front row right there. It's just incredible to watch those guys and how the noise, the impact. It's just wonderful to be at a live event. Everybody should do that and try to get front row or on the floor. WCW, kind of like the old days in the 60s before they merged, like we say football, AFC and the NFC when they merged. AFC was like the high flying, throwing the football much more than NFC. NFC was the bruiser, ground game, black and blue league, and the AFC was like the high flying, throw the ball, flashy stuff. It seems to me like they could do more of that with the WCW since Vince loves the big guys so much. Leave them in the WWF, and if you don't put big guys in the WCW, nobody's going to know the WCW guys aren't big. Have
the
them
problem
all
is the WCW
high flying, let them be the lightweights, let the cruisers be over there, maybe even let China leave with the title. And any women that aren't valets that really want to fight for a title, let them go to WCW.
No China.
Yeah.
Huh?
No China.
Everything else is fine, just no China.
No, I say if China leaves, let her leave with the belt, and don't even let the women's division, since they don't push that or the lightweight belt in the WWF, let the lightweights that really, and the women that are serious about a belt, do it in the WCW.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What?
I mean, it's possible. I don't know,
I just don't think Vince sees it that way. I think that the way Vince would look at it is, if I put all these small guys in this group, it will die next week.
Right.
I just think that's the way you think.
Right.
And you know what? And to his audience today, he's right. I mean, the whole thing is, it's all.
Well, I don't know if he is right because his audience wouldn't know because they would all be small. It would be like the ECW crew. Nobody would know they were small because they're all the same size.
But it's all about over there even. It's high flyers or lightweight.
Yeah. But it's the thing is that you've got to educate your audience and have patience with this. And this thing, this thing isn't going to be built in a day.
Well, you know what? If you think about it, let's say that they put all the cruiserweights in one group, and it was a high-flying group, and they put it on Monday night. The WWF fans would not accept it, but that's not to say that they wouldn't build a huge audience of new fans or older WCW fans in the first week, because look what happened with Raw Nitro when Nitro came on the air. It didn't split the audience. There was a new audience that appeared that first week.
But not only that, you know what, though? If they did it for a while and people started realizing there's good matches on the other show, they'll start watching. They'll start watching it. It's like it's this hurdle of the stigma of the name. That's a real hard one. And goddamn, I mean, it's harder than I ever thought it would be, and it's obviously harder than they thought it would be. But at the same time, you can't give up on that in a week. Now, they need to change.
There's some big names that are lightweights, more or less, from the WWF that they could put over there, obviously. People that aren't the monsters. You mean, you don't have to have a Stone Cold and Rock over there. You can take smaller guys. I mean, they don't all have to be high flyers.
Angle's only 5'9".
Yeah, you can put Angle over there. You can have smaller-sized guys over there.
You know what part of the problem is you get those tweener guys like Angle, but Angle weighs a lot. Angle's huge. I mean, even though he's short. But those guys like the Jerichos and Benoits, and I think that I think there's a feeling now, if you categorize them as light heavyweights, that it's the kiss of death. It's a weird thing because...
But that's the whole thing is you don't characterize them as that.
Yeah, well, it is the kiss of death because people have been trained that it's the kiss of death. How come it's not the kiss of death in boxing? And I mean, you just got to... I don't know.
How could anybody ever fight for the title if they ever held the lightweight title? How could Spike, a lightweight, ever be competing against Stone Cold in the first place?
Well, Spike's a different... There's a difference between a 150-pound lightweight and a 215-pound lightweight, though.
Well, I'm just saying, if you felt you shouldn't even be allowed to, if you follow rules of weight classes, you shouldn't be allowed to be fighting for that heavyweight title.
I mean, Spike is really weird because Spike, there's something about Spike. He's really got something, and but for most of those guys like Mysterio and everything, I mean, it's a kiss of death every time they put him in there with a big guy because it just doesn't work. All of a sudden, he goes from being like if he works with a guy who's up to about 5'8" or so, he's like one of the most awesome workers in the business. But when you put him in there with a guy who's like 6 feet, he looks like a small child, and the whole thing, looking at it, the whole thing is gone.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, you did a fantastic job. Keep us up to date, obviously, on the website, what's going to happen and where the show's going to show up again, because I'm not saying it's going off the air. It's just going off of eYada. You're going somewhere else, obviously.
I hope so.
Point. And,
if anyone's listening that's got ideas,
we've been sitting here for the last
somebody
hour
wants to put us on a radio, we're available as of 5 o'clock.
Yeah, we've been talking about radio.
Dave is very partial to that Ole Anderson story, if you know what I mean.
And
no, I don't go that far, but
all right, well,
I'll only suck cock if it's $1 million, not 750. Now I've got my priorities too.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Todd in Maryland is up next.
Todd, thanks for calling, Todd.
Hey,
how
what's
you doing?
up, Dave? Brian, how you guys doing?
Hey.
Hey, just called to praise you guys and say how much I enjoyed the show for the last couple of years. It's been such a great show and such a great utility. You guys have done such a great job, and Al as well, the call screener with a potty mouth but the heart of gold.
That is Al.
And I just sort of wrote down some things that I really thought this show really did over the last couple of years, because I think it really has had quite an impact in wrestling. The three sort of things that struck me were the fact that it's
you made Billy Gunn get a haircut.
What?
That's right.
Yeah,
probably.
That is my crowning moment in life.
And how appropriate that on the day that Buff Bagwell will be cut by the WWF, that eYada would also go off the air.
We got fired the same day as Buff Bagwell. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's not one to write on the resume. But one thing is the fact that it's really linked the wrestlers and the fans. And one thing that I think in hearing all these fans and being able to have them, sort of have this discourse with people on the internet, it sort of linked the wrestlers with the fans in a way that I don't think has really happened in the past, where, you could have people writing about it, but there wasn't that real interaction between people who really loved wrestling and, the wrestlers themselves. And through the show, a lot of the wrestlers have really been able to, explore, their different sides and really sort of become more related to the people. And I think that's a good thing. And then as well, it's sort of opened horizons. And I think, the internet, a lot of people on the internet are really accustomed to sort of their WWF stuff, and I think that the shows open up a lot of eyes, and a lot of people are talking about Japan or Mexico or mixed martial arts or even older stars that people who don't read the Observer, the Figure 4, have an interest in history. They've sort of been exposed to it and been dragged kicking and screaming into a more full understanding of what wrestling is, which I think is really important if you're going to be a wrestling fan. And then the third thing, which I think is most important, is just sort of the discourse. And, with the Observer and for so many years, there's so much that you can get from reading the Observer, but there's so much that you also miss in not being able to sort of interact and being able to send emails and just sort of talking about things and sort of having this free flow discussion to carry out through the days, and I think that's been really great too. Anyway, so those are sort of the things that I thought were great. And since you guys are sort of going off the air here, I think I should give a cheap plug to the Figure 4 and Observer, since all the people out there who are listening are probably, there are a lot of them who don't subscribe to either of those, and they're such great publications. I mean, I've been reading the Observer since I was 14. I mean, I can't imagine,
And you have it all memorized. I mean, geez, like on that last poll question, come on.
It's such an incredible utility to people who want to know about wrestling. And
if you want to know like what's going on, and you know what, the back issues, because now every couple of weeks I look back at the back issues, and it's like I'm reading my own stuff, so it sounds kind of funny. But there's really it sounds so silly saying this, but you really learn a lot and remember a lot when you go through some of those back issues of some of the big stories. Because like today I was reading about like when Ric Flair got fired by WCW in 1991, and I'm going through this, and I'm going like, God, this was quite an interesting, stupid story, if you know what I mean.
Plus, so much of it relates to today that you can learn more about what's going on today by reading about what happened.
Because as Paul Heyman said on that show,
and see how stupid people are today as well.
And before, but as Paul Heyman said, and I mean, this is the one thing.
No, they're stupider now, because at least before, when they made the mistake, they made it the first time.
Yeah. But I mean, when it comes to wrestling, I mean, one of the things that's so sad to me about some of these things that went wrong with this invasion, and I mean, I'm related to roller games or Montreal wrestling or whatever you're related to, is that if you studied it, the one thing, I mean, you could say, okay, this is how you do it right, but the one thing you can say even more for sure is, this is what you avoid, and for whatever reason they didn't do that, and that's where like when Heyman went on there and goes like, those who don't study history are doomed to repeat its mistakes. Right on the air, I was amazed he said that, because I think he was actually referring to Benoit and Jericho's push being stopped, but still, just to say that on the middle of a TV show was amazing.
Absolutely, and it's not just rhetoric to say that if people in the WWF were doing the same thing, going back and reading, old Observers, they'd be making a lot more money, because it really is. And I'd be remiss in not mentioning the Figure 4. I've been subscribing now, Brian, for about, I think, 6 months now, and I've really enjoyed it. You have a real ability to maximize production from little words. My favorite part of the Figure 4 most weeks is when you write "oh" at some point after someone does something, which usually the timing of it is absolutely perfect. Anyway.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyway, so you guys... take care, and I'll be in touch. And like I said in that email to you, Brian, to Dave, the cream always rises to the top, and you guys will be, successful as always in what you do in the future.
Thank you very much, Todd. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate all your input and your letters and everything.
Well, thank you.
And, Brian, one thing that we have not talked about, and I had it on my notes for today's show, is that fire spot on the XPW show. And, I mean, if there's one thing that I would hope that if this show could do some good in wrestling, is that there are, I just wish, like we've seen in the last couple of weeks a slew of injuries, probably the likes of which I don't know that I've ever in my life seen in wrestling. I mean, even with All Japan, I mean, those guys got banged up because of 10 and 15 years of taking incredible punishment in incredible matches. But I mean, we've seen...
Not at this rate.
Not at this rate. That's the whole point. I mean, at this rate, WWF, we've got... all of these guys hurt all at the same time. I mean, serious injuries with Benoit and Triple H for different reasons. Austin and Angle for also different reasons. But it all relates to the fact that, these guys are working really, really, really hard to entertain us. And sometimes they go too far, and the human body can only take so much. Okay, and then there's the things that happen. There's the just constant years of abuse injuries or something where you're going to land wrong. But then there's what happened with that fire, and it's like, I know guys have done fire spots and not gotten too badly burned in the past, but you can never predict it. And I think the fire thing really bothers me because one, it turns wrestling into a freak show. Okay, I mean, it's not like there's no skill. Any one of us can go through a table that's lit on fire. If we drink enough alcohol and don't care, and you know what I'm saying. Whereas we cannot construct a good match, but. Like what happened with that spot in the XPW match, it's like you had someone who was inexperienced pouring too much lighter fluid. Okay, and then you never know how fire is going to burn. And it's like, it's a matter of time. If you're going to be putting people through tables on fire, it's a matter of time before the ring catches on fire, before a real fire takes place, and something real serious happens if it didn't already happen Saturday. It's going to happen, and I just wish, like, some of these promotions, I suppose they just, like, kind of, like, wise up and go, like, hey, promote some wrestling and not promote, like, a freak show. I don't know. I think I'm saying this really bad, but it really got me mad because the previous Saturday, I think it was in Georgia, at the Bill Barron show, a guy got burned, not with a fire spot because you can't predict fire. And then the next week, someone does, and of course, no one's paying attention to what's going on anywhere else in wrestling. They're just out there to top ECW. So these guys want to top this fire spot, and then the guy gets burned like really bad because of it. And it's like, shouldn't somebody like learn from the fact that guys get burned? These burns. I don't know. I just think it's so stupid for a momentary pop that doesn't even mean anything afterwards.
I just wonder why they do it. Because, are they doing this because they want a job in the big time? Are they doing this because they want to get to the WWF?
They're doing it for a pop to get over, as a way to get over, which a lot of people will take a lot of punishment.
Well, who cares if you get a pop and get over? Why are they doing that? Do they want to go to the WWF? That's my question.
No, I
because
don't
if
think
they do,
then
they're even dumber than they realize. Because
I don't think.
If you look at those ECW guys, you don't think they want to go there?
The XPW guys, Supreme. I don't. If they had, if a guy like that, if a guy like that had illusions to do that, instead of going through fire, he would go to the gym and take steroids. Not that I'm advocating.
But maybe he doesn't understand that because he sees all these ECW guys that have made it to the WWF. Yeah, but what people have to realize is Sandman is not in the WWF, and Sabu is not in the WWF. They are nowhere.
And
it takes absolutely no talent, like you said, to light yourself on fire, or cut yourself with glass, or cut yourself with barbed wire. And if you're backstage at a WWF show, and you're standing there with your head all scarred up and burns on your arm, and you're going, oh, you had a tough hardcore match this weekend, they're going to look like you are such a loser, and you will never get a chance, ever.
Yeah. Anymore, let's get a couple calls in before we got to get out of here.
Chris in Texas is up next.
Chris, what's happening?
Not much. I was thinking about this being your guys' last show and the nostalgia of what Nitro was when they had the main event Sting and Ric Flair.
Oh, the last one?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe we can get, yeah.
And how, 10 years ago, the main event at the Great American Bash was Sting and Flair. And, between then and now,
1990, 11 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. I've been watching wrestling since Hogan and Ultimate Warrior were main eventing Toronto at WrestleMania 6.
Oh yeah, 1990 Skydome, yeah.
Yeah, and it's changed incredibly. ECW
and we'll continue to.
ECW coming along, and then they die, and then just reintegrating everything into the WWF. You've got WCW versus WWF. People thought that would never happen, and now it has.
And now they wish it hadn't.
Well, yeah, most people do.
Again, it'll all change tonight, so maybe I'm just sad that we're not going to be on the air tomorrow to talk about tonight's show.
Yeah, I'd love to be here tomorrow, listening to you guys say something about tonight's show, and SmackDowns and Raws and pay-per-views that are upcoming. But times change, and I hope you guys come back however you guys can do it.
Yeah, I do too.
I've been watching or listening to the show, since Vince Russo was talking his little crap about how
it was a ratings draw then.
Say
that.
But with China, Mick Foley, everybody has made an impact for your show, and that's why I've kept on listening and everything else.
Well, thanks very much.
And what was it? I was listening earlier in the show about one of you thinking that WrestleMania this year, with the main event being Rock and Austin, was one of the greatest. And you had 2 years ago, WrestleMania 15, Rock and Austin, and that blew away not the Anaheim Pond, but where was it?
Which one? The WrestleMania, the first time Rock and Austin WrestleMania?
Yeah, the first Austin Rock.
Yeah, that was a good match too.
Yeah,
I don't think it was nearly as good as the one that they just had, though.
Yeah. I mean, you've had WrestleManias that have just blown people's minds and everything.
In good ways and bad. There have been some good ones and bad ones. We got to get running because I want to get in one or two more calls before we get out of here. Okay. Okay.
Hey guys, one quick email from Bob Mould, who's a recent guest on the show, and he says, thanks to all you guys for the most entertaining talk show in wrestling as well as the internet. I hope for nothing but good things for you. Al, it was a pleasure and thrilled to be an in-studio guest, and I'm sure everything will work out fine for you in your future endeavors. Again, send my best to Dave and Brian. It's been fun to be a listener, and again, that's real rare in the radio world. I'll miss the show a lot. Best regards, Bob Mould. One last story. Wednesday afternoon bathroom break booking meeting, the week where we found out Liger was coming for 2 weeks. And this is Russo. Bob, do you think I'm a racist? Mould. No, but I think maybe some of your ideas could be misconstrued as such. Lewis from Arizona is up next.
Lewis, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Dave? What's up, Brian?
Hey.
I just wanted to call in and thank you guys for such an awesome show. I found you guys in November '99. I've been on a couple times, and I got to talk to Bobby Heenan and Chris Candido and, talk to you guys, and it's been a hell of a time, man.
Thanks.
And, Brian, you're still the funniest man in pro wrestling, and you're the only other guy besides me that loves Octagon Cito.
That's right.
Well, everyone loves Octagon Cito. Don't kid yourself.
Dude, he's the man, dude. And it's been fun talking to you on the message board, and we'll all keep in touch.
Yeah. And,
Thanks a lot.
everyone, we'll be, we're still going to be doing the website and everything, and, obviously the newsletter, so, we'll be able to keep in touch, and, when something breaks, and, I sure hope something breaks, and I think at some point probably something will.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
I mean, the show's just too good to keep off the radio somehow.
Oh, thanks. That's
so,
what
you guys have fun, man, and we'll see you guys again.
Okay, great. Anytime, Al, anytime for anybody else? Or
yeah, we got one more, Mike in New York.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Mike.
I'm going to miss the show, you know what I mean, Dave?
Yeah, you're the last one.
I remember the first week, being one of your first callers, and I think it was Al at that time. He was the guy, and it was like, can you hear me? And, no. Can you hear me? No. I never forget being on when Bob Ryder was on, and you two were going back, and I was I was on the air with you guys and asking questions with an uncomfortable silence between you and Bob there. That was douche chill theater, you know what I mean, man? Wow.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that being uncomfortable.
Well, you were the caller on the air and wanting to try to break in.
I remember doing that show, and I don't remember being uncomfortable for a second on that show.
It was uncomfortable. I was trying to break in, and there was the sound. I was saying, "Can I raise my hand?"
That sounds like me.
Oh man, I remember. I remember. You know what? When I heard, I didn't have my web TV yet then. I couldn't hear Russo. But when I heard about Russo, I said, "That's nothing new, man." I remember calling up John Arrizzi's show to speak to Dave and stuff. Russo was a con net. Russo was the biggest con net.
You know what's funny about that is John Arezzi. I just heard from John Arezzi, and I was actually trying to get him on this show. Believe it or not.
How's he doing? How's he doing?
He's working in Nashville, Tennessee.
Really? Wow.
And he's working I think he's working in the country music business. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I remember.
And he just for those, John Arezzi did a show like this, like back in the 80s and early 90s.
The Spotlight.
The Pro Wrestling Spotlight on WEBD, was it?
No, it was at GBB Sundays at noon. Then it went to New York. Then Russo pulled a coup d'etat. You know what I mean?
Right. But it was I don't know if it was the first show of its type, but it was one of the first. And he wrote and he said he's very, very happy away from wrestling. I mean, because he tried to promote wrestling. And,
I remember that.
Hey, he was actually one of the guys who was very responsible for bringing AAA to the United States. And they had a big run for a couple of years before it just. Pena just fell apart. What can I say? They had some awesome shows in the United States, back in 93, 94, and they were actually drawing better than the WWF at the time, which is pretty strange.
Sorry, guys, I had to let Mike go. We are just about out of time. And
We're out of time.
Yeah, I just want to say to the both of you guys, it's been a lot of fun. This isn't the end. I think that this show is going to continue in some way and in some capacity, and it's been great working with the two of you guys. You guys have been, kick-ass, and I've had a lot of fun, and it's sad to see this show go.
Yeah. Al, Dave, you were both the man. I don't know how you could both be at the same time, but you were.
I just want to tell you that, your support and everything, Al, I mean, you've become such a good friend and everything. I mean, just through the last couple of years, it's awesome. And Brian, it's like, Brian scares me to death because it's like every Tuesday morning or every Tuesday afternoon when we do the show, And I go, Brian, what do you think of Raw? And it's just like, no, I've got nothing to say. He said, you mentioned every single point that I'm ready to say. It's like, sometimes I go like, Brian has got ESP. It just scares me to death. But Brian, I want to tell you something. You have done such a good job with that newsletter. And I mean, I wish when I was your age that I had 1/10 your knowledge and understanding of this business. And you were going, I just want everyone to know that Brian is going to be the best writer this industry ever had at some point. Maybe he already is. No, I mean, seriously. So, anyway, just wanted to say
thank you very much. I appreciate everything that you've done for me, and same with Al. And hopefully this is, like Al said earlier today, just the beginning.
Okay. And thanks for all the callers. Thanks to Bob Meyerowitz for giving us the chance. And we'll see everybody down the line.